immigration policies of the last two governments, you're racist. And yet the Home Secretary, Shubham Mahmood, tries to copy our policies.
Patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something smaller, something more like ethno-nationalism, which struggles to accept that someone who looks like me and has a faith like mine can truly be English or British.
Britain is being invaded. Thousands of fighting-age men from countries that despise Britain continue to arrive on our beaches. Our plan is the only appropriate response to a national security emergency. Immediate removal. Deportation is the ultimate deterrent.
Our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are, by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline.
To accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well, this language will incite and encourage the radical left. I'm thinking of Antifa and other organisations like that. It directly threatens the safety of our elected officials and our campaigners. And frankly, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder, I think this is an absolute disgrace.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I've got to tell you this bit as well. If you do miss any of the show, and why would you, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking about, of course we are, Keir Starmer accusing Nigel Farage of being a snake oil merchant who does not like Britain. In his speech at the Labour Party conference yesterday, the PM launched a series of scathing attacks on the Reform UK leader, accusing him of pursuing the politics of grievance. Really? Really, Starmer? With racist policies. Oh, no, but he doesn't think that Nigel Farage himself is racist. Of course not. Farage later hit back at Keir Starmer, saying he wasn't fit to be Prime Minister and that he incited violence against Reform UK's MPs and campaigners by accusing him of racism. The Reform leader warned that Keir Starmer's comments will incite and encourage the radical left and claimed the PM had descended into the gutter. Meanwhile, enter stage left David Lammy. Oh, last time I looked, Deputy Prime Minister of this country, has been forced to row back on his claim that Nigel Farage once flirted with the Hitler Youth. Completely a separate story. Let's talk about US politics. We've got a shutdown of the US government, plus fat generals are to be ousted from the Pentagon and all staff will be waged twice a year. I think we should bring that policy in here. Under Donald Trump's new look Department of War. This comes after Pete Hegseth, the US Defence Secretary, rallied more than 800 admirals and generals at a Marine Corps base in Virginia to, he says, prepare for war. Well, goodness me, that's an awful lot going on in the news. It is fascinating. Labour Party conference. What is the story? Reform. Absolutely extraordinary. But Keir Starmer accusing Nigel Farage of being a snake oil merchant who does not like or believe in Britain. What's your reaction to that? We've already seen Nigel Farage. I'll play some clips to get you up to date for those who've been too busy to see some of those clips. But give us a call. Tell us what you think on 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Delighted to say joining me on the show, as always, on a Wednesday is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning to you.
Morning.
Well, I mean, it's quite interesting for Tories to be sort of watching this sort of tennis match going between Labour and Reform. You guys not getting much of a look in. Don't think Kemi Badenoch, your Tory leader, got a mention at all. But these were quite extraordinary scenes. Before we discuss this, and I've got quite a few things to say on this, as I'm sure you will. Shall we play a few clips just to get you up to date on what has said? So let's have a little clip of Keir Starmer. You know me, I'm very much the rule that speeches should only be clips. Here's what Keir Starmer had to say about Nigel Farage in his big barnstorming speech to conference yesterday.
We can all see these snake oil merchants on the right, on the left, but be in no doubt conference, none of them have any interest in national renewal, because decline is good for their business. When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does.
Well, it won't surprise you that Nigel Farage then issued a video giving his view on Keir Starmer.
Sorry to say, I now believe that he is unfit to be the Prime Minister of our country. The Prime Minister has decided to descend into the gutter and all of his cabinet with him. Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. This language will incite and encourage the radical left. It directly threatens the safety of our elected officials and our campaigners. And frankly, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder, I think this is an absolute disgrace.
What was even more of a disgrace was the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, making an accusation and then apologising, sort of, for that accusation some hours later.
I will leave it for the public to come to their own judgments about someone who once flirted with Hitler Youth when he was younger. That is for the public. He has denied it, and so I accept that he has denied it, and I would like to clarify that position because in the end the Prime Minister was keen for us to focus on the policies, not the individual.
Did we talk about policies at any point, though, Keir Starmer and David Lammy? Keir Starmer has been, praised to the rafters by Labour supporters as a man who took the fight to reform, re-establish his leadership, showed his vision of Britain. But all he talked about was Reform UK and Nigel Farage. I didn't hear any vision for Britain. It may as well have been the Reform Conference. Instead of defining what he stands for, what he believes in, his vision, announcing his policies to change our country, Keir Starmer simply defined himself by what he's not. He's not Nigel Farage. But calling Nigel Farage's policies racist and immoral and divisive and toxic simply won't wash. And neither will the claim that, I don't believe Nigel Farage is racist. No, I don't believe Reform voters are racist. Brackets, I want them to come back and vote Labour next time round. Because if by definition someone who supports a racist policy must have racist views, surely not. It just isn't believable, Prime Minister. And people have had enough of their completely reasonable concerns about real problems they see with their own eyes being dismissed by the left as racist and toxic. The reality is the only people stirring up hatred and division in this country are Keir Starmer and his Deputy PM, David Lammy, and Wes Streeting as well. David Lammy falsely accusing Farage of flirting with the Hitler Youth. I mean, for goodness sake, grow up, guys. Claiming a policy of deporting migrants who can't prove they are contributing to this country isn't remotely racist. What's it even got to do with the colour of anyone's skin? No one mentioned race, Keir Starmer, until you did. And do they even remember that just a few weeks ago, Charlie Kirk was murdered, a man who had never expressed a violent view in his life, but was murdered in cold blood by a man who thought that disagreeing with a political opponent meant it was justifiable for him to take his life. Stirring up irrational hatred against a political opponent is inviting violence against them. Farage has already faced death threats and genuine physical attacks. Let's hope it's a milkshake next time as well, shall we, while he's out campaigning on our streets. If Nigel Farage had delivered the same speech about Keir Starmer in that way on stage, Keir Starmer himself would be outraged. Yeah, I'm sure Keir Starmer's speech went down an absolute storm with the people in the conference hall after a lot of chatter of his failing leadership and a threat from Andy Burnham. But the only thing anyone is going to remember from this entire Labour conference is his attacks on the man leading in the polls. It is Starmer who is stirring up division. He stirred up division after the Brexit vote in 2016, fighting tooth and nail to stop the biggest democratic vote in our nation's history from being enacted. It was Starmer, not Nigel Farage, who stoked division by pushing the human rights agenda, which means that foreign rapists and paedophiles and drug dealers can win the right to live here indefinitely. It's Starmer who stokes up division by deriding ordinary British people as far right, as racist, for expressing legitimate concerns about mass legal and illegal immigration. And it's Starmer's party that doesn't like our country and would rather wave the EU flag than our own red, white and blue union flag. It is them who don't trust the British people to decide who runs our country, thinking that Brussels bureaucrats and foreign courts can do it better. Prime Minister, if you are rattled this badly by a party with, as you keep pointing out, just 5 MPs, only 15 months after you won a landslide election with a working majority of 161 MPs, you've got bigger problems than Nigel Farage. And your biggest problem is you. That's my thought. Love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Claire Pearsall, as I say, former Conservative government advisor, your lot didn't get a look in. You're irrelevant now. What did you make of this, extraordinary war of words?
It is quite something. So the grand takeaway from the Labour Party conference across 3 days is Nigel Farage.
Yep.
He is the threat to the country, apparently. And that's it. No policies, no decisions, and I listened.
There were some policies, but they've kind of what were they? We've forgotten them all.
I was going to say,
ID cards, brilliant.
Them? But ID cards, interestingly, wasn't even mentioned in Keir Starmer's speech. Yeah. So he made a really big thing about it, then failed to mention it through his keynote speech.
In a 55-minute speech?
Yeah, I listened to this.
Can we have a little round of applause for Claire managing to get through the whole speech?
It was, thank you. I do these things. It was a speech that was also seemingly written by about 2 or 3 different people.
I thought ChatGPT.
Yes.
I've got to be honest with you.
The first half was really, really, really boring, and even by Keir Starmer's standards, really dull. And then he sort of livened up a bit. But even so, what a set of words to use against another political party.
But why in your barnstorming speech, apparently, why in your big keynote speech as Prime Minister with, less than 4 years to go on your term in office, with a big mandate, you've got 161 majority mate, you could do anything you want. Yeah. And I will criticise policy, but I will defend the right of this government as a democratically elected government under our system of election to do the policies that they said they were going to do. Now, if they go against the manifesto commitment, we should rail against that, as I would if it was Reform or the Tories or anyone else in power. But you shouldn't be talking about anyone else. You should be talking about what you have done and what you will do.
Yes.
And we had so little of that. And when they do talk about their achievements, and we had a representative of Labour List magazine on yesterday, and she was saying about, GB energy, but no one even knows what it does.
It's really difficult for them to list any of their successes. And there was another piece in the speech about not surrendering the flag. Keir Starmer will not surrender it. Who's asked him to?
That's the thing. Is that he and, the Emily Thornberrys and all that. No, but they do think that the flag, they're ashamed of their country. They're ashamed of our history. They're ashamed of our culture. They think we should take the knee, literally, to any other culture that comes here because ours is inferior and racist and wrong. They think our flag represents a colonial, evil, slave-owning part. They really do think that. And yet they'll accuse people like me or you of being or Nigel Farage of being flag wavers. But they'll stand up, they'll wave and stand in front of a blue flag with yellow stars on that has nothing to do with this country quite happily.
Yeah,
or a rainbow flag. They bloody love a rainbow flag.
Oh, they do. They like those. But also by calling policies of reform racist, that's just saying that everybody that supports them or anybody that has those concerns is also racist. They
insist that's not the case. Interview after interview, these little sessions that after the speech which the Prime Minister had with the BBC and with Sky and ITV and everything, he keeps saying that But it's not true, because if you Claire, we are not just colleagues on air. I think we're friends as well. If I believe that you, or if you believe that I supported a policy that the other one believed to be racist, I don't think we would be friends. I'm not sure I'd want you on my show, and you want to come on my show.
Well, no, you wouldn't, and that's the whole point. But also,
because I think you were a racist.
But yes, I mean, that's only sort of basic common sense, isn't it? But I think by sort of tarring everybody with that brush just shows that you haven't got an argument to make yourself.
Yeah, but also this idea of migrant policy, so deporting people who don't speak proper English, are not making a proper contribution on benefits, or have committed criminal acts, who've been given indefinite leave to remain in the last 10 years or so, and basically saying, actually, you're going to have to reapply, not sure you fulfil the criteria anymore, you're not a net benefit to this country, we'd like you to leave. Now, whether they ever get round to deporting those people is another thing entirely. But the idea that policy is racist, who mentioned race? If you were a white Canadian or Australian or Frenchman, no, it probably wouldn't count under the EU rules. They can stay forever and ever. But I couldn't care less what the colour of your skin was. If you've come here to this country basically under false pretences by, getting a job here, but then actually not working after you've got, you've been given the leave to remain or claiming benefits and then I'm sorry. No, the rules have changed. You don't get to stay. Rules change. Again, this idea we can't change the rules. I'm sorry, but they were happy to change the rules on things like VAT for school fees. Now, I don't think that people who can send their kid to private school, which I did, I don't think we're the people who people should get their little violins out for. I'm really not. But so halfway through a school year, they changed those rules, even though people would have enrolled their child in that school year on the basis of the fee. Yeah. They're happy to change the rules, whether it's winter fuel allowance, or they change the rules all the time. And if governments can't change the rules and can't change laws, and yes, sometimes that is backdated, it's from going forward, that no longer applies, then what's the point of us ever having elections? Ever?
But what's the point of policies? Because things change. The landscape changes, the country changes, needs of the country change.
Like refugee convention, good thing, absolutely, in the 50s. Not so much anymore.
No, but we can make bespoke schemes for Ukrainians and for Hong Kongers. So those were changes in the laws because they didn't exist beforehand. So they can change the law when it suits them. Yeah. And that's what I don't like.
It's the hypocrisy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But again, not just Starmer, what he said, calling Farage a snake oil statement, saying snake oil merchant, saying he doesn't like Britain and he doesn't believe in Britain. David Lammy talking about Nigel Farage flirting with Hitler Youth. I mean, I was messaging Nigel Farage yesterday saying, you need to start suing these people. I mean, get the libel lawyers, but he would win. I'm sorry. You simply can't make stuff up like that. There was an instant in his youth when he was singing songs. I mean, sorry, people have done stupid things when they were 14. Diane Abbott on Newsnight last night. Why people are still inviting Diane Abbott on any programme? I know one watches Newsnight anyway. Saying, I'm all for people giving him a good kicking. Again, I don't have a problem with people using phrases like that because that's simply a phrase. That's a British, idiomatic speech. I've got no issue with that. Do you think if Nigel Farage had said that about Diane Abbott, that the BBC and the left wouldn't be up in arms about that awful, racist, misogynistic? No, but she can say it. She gets a free pass. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, long regarded as one of the sane people in the cabinet, but quite happily standing there and getting his, literally trying to get his head into the picture when that Palestinian flag was raised, because, oh, goodness me, a lot of Muslim voters in his constituency in a very small majority. Wes Streeting, we all thought better of you, but we were wrong. But yes, he's accusing Nigel Farage of being a con artist. Now, again, when you say to people, you were conned into voting for Brexit, you've been conned by Nigel Farage, and those policies are racist, you're saying to people, either you are racist, or you're saying you're stupid. Yeah. Telling voters that they are racist and stupid largely doesn't work out well for the people who are saying that, because our British voters are not. Yes, there are some racists, and yes, there are some stupid people. We've all met them. Some of us work alongside some of them at times. I mean, we've got members of our family who fit into that category. But telling the majority of the British public that that's who they are, and then thinking, I hope they vote for us next time. It's not going to work.
Well, of course it's not. You're not going to vote for the people that said, oh, you were misguided and
You're an
stupid
idiot.
and you were wrong. So, you know, come to us and we'll tell you what's best.
Fascist idiots, come back and vote for us.
Honestly,
I mean,
we're
is
the
that your
nice
policy,
people.
Keir?
But when you have to go out onto the media to explain, apologise, clarify,
Yeah.
just means you got it wrong in the first place.
Exactly.
Don't do it.
Absolutely. He has also said there was a bit of policy. I think it's really interesting. You say the ID cards policy, the big. This is how we're going to stop. I mean, no one can yet work out how it will solve like migrants getting on boats. You know, another 400. You know, yesterday, and God knows how many more this morning. But apparently, Keir Starmer does want to change how international law, not the actual law, not the law, not the European Convention on Human Rights, not leaving it, not reforming it, but how it's interpreted. To say, he says, to stop unsuccessful asylum seekers blocking their deportation. Now, I'm of the view that the interpretation is the problem. There's nothing wrong with, you know, the article stating, you know, your right to privacy and things like that. It's the fact that they've got, you know, a family life. It's the fact they've got 2 paragraphs and our judges are ignoring the first paragraph. But he's not going to be able to stop judges in their interpretation. By definition, it's an interpretation.
And he should know that, considering that he always tells us he's a lawyer and he's come from a legal background.
He
Then
understands
he should understand
these
that.
things.
So I'm not sure what he's going to do. Is he going to send a little note out to all the judges saying, please, 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 can you do this?
Can you send some of these people home?
But, I mean, that doesn't say much for the judiciary then, does it?
I mean, it really doesn't. I mean, we need a full clear out. Civil service and judiciary, there's no way we're going to deal with anything without that. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, again, her speech was an absolute, you know, nothing and nothing. She, though, we understand, is reconsidering a plan to scrap 2-child benefit cap. This is something the left desperately want us to give about £3,500 a year for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th kid of people who don't earn enough money to support the children they've got. Because apparently it's really good for this country. Oh, and foolishly, Nigel Farage has talked about this as well, although I think they've said only for working families. Sorry, you know, what? So dad works 2 days a week and you've got 5 kids. Yeah. We know what this is again. This is a policy which largely benefits immigrant families. Because I'm afraid to tell you, British people are not having, of any hue, are not having more than a couple of kids because they can't afford them. But the 2-child benefit cap is hugely popular. Guess what? Particularly among people on low incomes, because they live, you know, I don't live next door to people who are claiming, you know, benefits and extraordinary. They can't afford to live in my street. But I tell you who do live next to those people who get up every morning at 6 a.m. to go to work all day, often in a job that's, you know, hard, you know, let's face it, harder than sitting in a radio studio. No, but come on, proper work, you know, physical work. And they're doing a job all day. They're coming home and the bloke and his family next door have done bugger all day, and they're getting pretty much the same income. So yeah, those people really do care about those sort of policies. The idea that my taxes should go towards funding someone having more kids than most people can afford is insane.
But also, the cost of reversing this policy is £3.5 billion a year.
Yeah.
I thought that we had no money. I thought that there was this enormous black hole that we were supposed to fill with something. So where's that coming from? So we couldn't afford to just leave the pensioners alone with their winter fuel allowances. We had to take that. We've hit the farmers, but it's all right. Have more kids and we'll just pay for them for you. I don't want my tax money to go to that.
But also this idea, I know we need more kids, but I'm not entirely sure that the
But we shouldn't pay for them.
Yeah, but also I'm not entirely sure that the people who can't or who don't work, I mean, sorry, they need this money because they're not both working, they're not looking at it. If we're talking about people who if you can't pay for the kids, you shouldn't have them. It's simple as that. These are not the people who are turning out the future entrepreneurs and hard workers and taxpayers of the future who are going to fund all our pensions when we're old. I'm sorry, they're not. There are some really clear indicators of whether or not a child is going to go on to be a productive member of society. And mum and dad not being able to pay the bills because they're just having kids they can't afford and expecting other people to pay them are not the people who are producing those kids. Just telling you that. Just finally, talking about producing kids, some new scientific breakthrough that we didn't need, able to produce, they believe, babies that could be born without a biological mother, basically fertilising. I mean, I don't even want to get into the details of this, but why? Why do we want to bring in babies into the world without a biological mother? I mean, the most important thing that a baby needs, the only thing a baby can see in the first 6 weeks of its life is between the nipple of the mother and the mother's face. That's it. That's all they can only see the 6. That's all they need to see, because the only person that matters, and yes, dads, of course dads matter. Most good dads would also accept that mum matters more in those early years, right? Am I right? Am I the only person who's saying this out loud?
No.
But why do we want to remove the number one most important thing from a child, which is their biological mother?
If women were scared about being erased from society beforehand, they need to be extremely concerned with this. As you say, why? Why bother? What's the point of this? Just because you
Could
can
you try
do
curing
something,
cancer rather than doing this, please?
I would much rather have that. But just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. What's the point of it?
Yeah.
What are you trying to prove? Should we just leave this one well alone? I don't understand. Science gone completely bonkers.
Seriously dystopian stuff. It really is. As indeed is everything that Keir Starmer said in his speech yesterday, linking that back. I do want to hear your thoughts. Lots of calls already on the board. If you want to get in touch and have your say, please do so. 0344 499 1000. I'm genuinely, you probably guessed this, pretty bloody incandescent about what Keir Starmer had to say yesterday. I think he's insulted not just Nigel Farage and people who remember Reform, but Reform voters, but he's insulted vast majority of the British public. He really, really has. And he's insulted our country. And I really do think the person who is the snake oil merchant, who doesn't like or believe in his country, is actually the Prime Minister himself. I want to hear your thoughts, how well you thought that will have gone down with voters across the country. Give us a call, get in touch, and we'll come to your calls next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:29 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Claire Pearsall is still here as well. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000. What do you make of Keir Starmer accusing Farage being a snake oil merchant who does not like or believe in Britain? Farage hitting back, saying he's basically not up to the job of being Prime Minister. Your reaction to that? Carl is on the line, who is in Liverpool. Good morning to you, Carl. Have you been at Labour Party conference?
Absolutely not.
So you didn't do something that bad in a past life, then?
No, I'd rather pull my eyes out. I don't even know how to begin with Keir Starmer, Julia, to be honest, in the words he's used against Nigel and Reform voters.
He says he's not criticising Reform voters.
Well, that's a lie, isn't it? He pretty much painted us all the same.
Yeah.
I just find it hard to believe that this man's stooped so low to use these tactics and these words. He knows these words will carry, and the so-called loony left will take on board what he said.
Yeah.
I think, and I echo what you said earlier, Julia. Nigel should too. You know, David Lammy. I think what he said is absolutely disgraceful. These are grown men that are meant to be in high office and represent us, and the words they use are attacking and nasty, vile rhetoric.
But also, you know, again, play the ball, not the man. They keep saying, you know, talk about the policies, explain why the policies are wrong, rather than just saying they're racist and immoral. Again, talking about a policy is racist. No one even mentioned the colour of anyone's skin. It's totally irrelevant.
It is, Julia, but the man has no policies. He doesn't have a genuine thought in his head. We need them gone. We need them gone, Julia.
Well, they're not going anytime soon. We might see Starmer gone. That said, that little oh, look at me from Andy Burnham disappeared pretty quickly, didn't it?
It did, yeah. I think, well, he needs to sort Manchester out before he sits in the big seat, you know. We have so many problems across the northwest. Labour coming here. I mean, we don't like them. We haven't liked them for a long time. So, and apparently there was a video of Keir Starmer who actually dislikes coming to Liverpool, was caught.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, I just think we're not going to get rid of them, Julia. We know that. You know, the only worry is who comes in after him, because he won't last that much longer. I can't see.
No, I'm coming round to that way of thinking. I really am. Carl, thank you very much indeed. Lottie's also on the line. She's in Lancashire. Lottie, what do you make of this exchange?
Morning, Julia. Morning. Well, I'm changing my name to Mrs. Angry from Lancashire from now on.
I love it.
Okay? Right, so this is the same playbook that the Democrats have been using since 2016.
Yeah.
Racist, liars, this, that and the other. Exactly the same playbook. Yeah. And we saw where that ended up, didn't we? With Trump with a massive, massive majority.
Yeah. It's just the voters, whoever they are. I mean, again, lots of people don't like Trump as a human being, don't agree with everything he says or does or his personality. But it's about the policies. People vote based on how someone is going to improve their country, improve their lives.
Yeah. What worries me the most, though, is with all this awful, awful rhetoric, and I just could not believe what I was watching yesterday. I had to turn it off. I can't bear it when you put their faces on the screen anymore, and I'm sure most of the population just nearly vomits every time they come on.
The audience in the hall loved it. They loved it.
Oh, well, they would do, wouldn't they? Because they love vomit anyway. So what really worries me is now about Nigel Farage, because if they touch one hair on his head from this moment on, this country will erupt. And if anything worse happens to him, oh my goodness.
I know.
They need to listen to what we're saying now, because this is getting really serious. Yep. And if they want trouble on the street, well, let them carry on doing exactly what they're doing.
I couldn't agree with you more. I really do. And again, this deriding of British people again and again for expressing reasonable views, and then saying a policy is racist and the people are racist, and then coming up with very, very similar policies themselves, which of course they'll completely mess up and won't deliver on. Lottie, I couldn't agree with you. I'm Mrs. Angry in London. Thank you very much indeed for that. Claire Pearce, a quick reaction?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that really interesting? So the two callers from further up into the north of the country, where Labour are normally quite strong, saying this is appalling and it's going to end up in violence. And you can see that, and that's what people are worried about.
I mean, we've seen what's happened. Attempted assassination, 2 attempted assassinations of Donald Trump, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You could agree and disagree with people. But the idea that you take that, and again, the left laughing when Nigel Farage had a rock thrown at him when he was on a campaign bus, and the milkshakes. I mean, I'm sorry, but but words of violence. No, someone actually throwing something in your face is violence.
You don't know
and
what
you
it
are
is.
Inciting that. We are in that territory, really are. Well, we're going to talk to Representative of Reform, friend of the show, Alex Wilson. He's a London Assembly member, no doubt an MP next time round, joining those ranks of 5 that currently who are wrestling the Prime Minister something wrong. That's why he talked about them more than any Labour policy this week. We'll talk to Alex Wilson up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. Let's talk to a man of the moment here, Alex Wilson, Reform UK's London Assembly member. And there's no doubt at all, Alex, that your leader, Nigel Farage, I mean, he was the most spoken about man at party conference this week, but it wasn't the Reform Party conference, it was the Labour Party conference. Prime Minister accusing him of being a snake oil merchant who does not like or believe in Britain, saying his policies are racist, but he as a man isn't racist and Reform voters aren't racist. What do you make of those claims?
Morning, Julia. It's great to be with you again. It's been a fascinating Labour conference in many ways. Just after the Lib Dem conference, where, again, Ed Davey, all he was talking about was Nigel, and obviously on the back of our conference where we were celebrating Nigel and all the things that he's going to do for the country when he becomes Prime Minister. And I'm increasingly confident that it's when, not if. But I really enjoyed the Matt cartoon in yesterday's Telegraph, where it had a couple of Labour delegates leaving their conference saying, oh, next year I'll go to Reform conference, because they don't just talk about Nigel all the time. I thought that was hilarious and hit the nail on the head. We've reached this stage now where the other parties are obsessed with us. Roll back the clock a year or two and most people hadn't heard of who we were. So they say all publicity is good publicity. Well, let's say about that. I think it's great that we're setting the agenda policy-wise as well as personality-wise, and the other parties really have run out of things to say, and that's why we've seen this week Labour, all they can resort to is smears and calling us names. And look, after what happened just a couple of weeks ago in America with Charlie Kirk, all of us involved in politics should be very, very careful about the language that we use to describe our opponents. Attack people on policy, absolutely, but don't attack people for their personal motives and so on. Because I've known Nigel for a few years now, and I can see that his patriotism has always been based around belief in the rule of law, playing by the rules, integration, values. Never has it ever been about the colour of your skin or the God that you choose to worship or not worship? And it's why it's quite staggering to see not just Keir Starmer, but Shabana Mahmood, David Lammy, Bridget Phillips, and all of them this week. A concerted attack from all of them, all accusing Nigel one way or the other of being racist. The nonsense we saw from Lammy yesterday about Hitler Youth. I mean, where do they get it from? It's crazy. But that's it shows they haven't got anything positive to offer the country. That's what they have to resort to. Well, this is the thing.
The big takeaway from Labour conference is basically you've got a Prime Minister running scared from Andy Burnham and running scared from Keir Starmer. I mean, as Claire Gissel, my guest in the studio, pointed out, the Prime Minister didn't even mention his big answer to apparent. I mean, no one can quite work out why. A big answer to illegal migration is digital ID cards. Didn't even get mentioned in his speech, his big set piece speech in 55 minutes. You'd think it might have got at least one sentence in that speech, but no, it was all about Nigel Farage. That's the only thing we're talking about. Do you think this is a win for Keir Starmer, though? He has buoyed up his own party members. The conference hall loved it. Got people coming out saying, yeah, he's come out fighting. We've heard about his vision. Now, as I said a bit earlier, I don't know what his vision is, because it seems to be just, I'm not Nigel Farage. That seems to be it. And all the policies, as you say, you are leading. There's no doubt at all. You are setting the agenda. You've massively moved the Overton window for both Tories and Labour when it comes to immigration and benefits and the like. And they just decry your policies as racist and all terrible, and then basically announce something fairly similar, but just a light version of it, a diet version of it. But how successful do you think that this was for Keir Starmer personally? Because if he's shored himself up with his own party membership, even if he's alienated the rest of the country, that works for him, doesn't it?
I think he's done enough to keep his position secure for now. We'll obviously see what happens after the Scottish, Welsh and council elections next year, and I think Kemi will be in a similar position with the Conservatives if they also have another disastrous set of elections. But you saw Andy Burnham left the Labour conference before Starmer's speech. He kind of had his moment and it seems to have fizzled away. So I think, Starmer's in place for now. I don't think he'll last until the next general election, but I think he's there for the next few months at least. But if you look at the substance of what he was saying in his speech, I mean, we can talk about the racism allegations and all, but if going beyond that, you look at he was trying to give the impression, or I think the thing that sort of struck me, he was talking about trying to change the way that we create wealth as a country. But if you look at the actions of this Labour government, you can see that the rhetoric is so so far away from what's actually happening. As a consequence of Rachel Reeves' first budget, where she put up taxes, and now making it more and more difficult and unviable to employ people and for businesses to grow, that's not going to change the way we create wealth. And the examples that Starmer gave in his speech yesterday, talking about from clean energy to creative arts, well, that's not the way to build mass employment and a sustainable economy. To grow the economy, to get people in work and to stop the rising tide of unemployment, which is growing month on month now and has done since that first budget, we need to grow stuff. We need to drill for stuff, have cheap energy. We need to manufacture stuff. That's the basis of a thriving, growing, successful economy.
And all of their talking about becoming a world AI leader. Well, AI requires huge amounts of energy, and it has to be cheap. I mean, this is the thing. But
you're not going to do that with wind farms.
What did you make though of Keir Starmer talking about how he wanted to change how international law is interpreted? He said in interviews since, to stop unsuccessful asylum seekers blocking the deportation. So not leaving the ECHR, not reforming it, but changing how human rights legislation effectively is interpreted by judges in our tribunals and in our courts.
Well, if you look at the way that judges are interpreting those rules, and asylum judges and all those kind of things, you're not going to change that by decreeing from number 10. I guess in some ways, welcome an acknowledgement that the system isn't working. But fundamentally, if we're going to change the system, we have to change the laws that are being interpreted, and that means withdrawing from the ECHR. It means repealing the Human Rights Act, putting British citizens first, and you're not going to do that just by a few words from a conference speech that aren't going to be followed up by those judges that are in place and are making those decisions on a daily or weekly basis. And what do you make also of Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, apparently considering a plan to scrap the two-child benefit cap? That's a £3.5 billion cost. It's about $3,500 extra a year per child for a family that is able to get that extra money, more than 2 children. Your party, for some bizarre reason, against, by the way, majority of voter opinion, you also support scrapping that cap. So would you welcome that? Yeah, I know you and I have clashed on this one before. Well, you've been wrong about it and I've been right about it. Well, I couldn't possibly comment. But anything that costs money needs to be funded by saving money elsewhere. And the welfare budget is bloated. There needs to be things looked at it to try and trim that back. We saw the Labour government, though, they tried just to reduce the increase in the welfare budget through the PIP, and they couldn't manage to get that through their parliamentary party. So anything that Labour try and put forward to make savings, I really think they'll struggle to get it through. Well, it's not going to be a saving, it's an extra cost. Why does Reform, though, support a policy of paying people who don't work enough to support the children they've got and asking other people who already go out to work, who probably would love to have more children but can't afford it because they're paying so much tax, to pay more tax to pay for other people who can't afford to pay for the kids they've already got? Why would you think that was a fair policy? Because one of the 3 fundamental principles that guide our party is family. So family, community and country. Those are the values that Nigel espouses. Who do you want to have more kids? What about the hard-working families who can only afford to have 1 kid because they can't afford to buy a home because they have to has a second child? What about those families? They can't afford because they're paying so much tax and house prices are so high and the cost of living so high. If they could have lower taxes and we weren't having a booming welfare state paying for feckless people who can't look after their own kids, wouldn't they be able to then have another kid? What about them? Yeah, we want to do it by growing the economy, by cutting taxes, by making energy costs cheaper. Well, no, but you're not cutting taxes if you're adding an extra £3.5 billion to the bill by paying people who don't work enough to support their own kids. Do you think that those kids are going to be a benefit to society, realistically? I think having stable families that can grow is a good thing. Well, and yes, they're not stable families, are they? Their parents can't support them. We want to get people back into work, and fundamentally it's about growing the economy. That's what Labour are failing at doing. Alex, that's why their tax hikes are so bad. I know you don't agree with this policy. Why don't you just say it? That's why I'm absolutely dreading what Rachel Reeves will come up in the next budget. You don't agree with this policy, do you? Her first one was a disaster. Her second one's probably going to be even worse. It's going to be our last. I think we know that. But you don't agree with this policy. I can tell you don't. Alex Wilson, Reform UK London Assembly member, thank you very much for joining us. Claire Pearsall.
Well, it was a good effort. Do you know what? He's saying a lot of words there. I know they've only got 5 MPs. They've got a lot of good... I don't like to use the word performer because it implies it's a performance for someone as opposed to people who can actually communicate and support their party policies. But somebody that can actually explain and have a conversation with you. And there are some really good people. And Alex is one of those. But He doesn't believe it. He
doesn't
can't
believe that.
believe
No one
it.
sane believes in that policy. I'm just paying a load of people who can't support their kids to have more kids. Breaking news, by the way, you'll love this, guys. A company linked to the Tory peer Baroness Michelle Mone, her of the Bras, the High Court has ruled did breach a government contract of nearly £122 million to supply surgical gowns during the COVID pandemic. The case was brought by the Department of Health basically because they was faulty. These gowns were not sterile. They were completely faulty, unusable in the NHS. Now, the High Court has just ruled that company, PPE MedPro, was in breach of contract and must pay the government back, i.e. you and me, back £122 million. The government's recovering those costs, and there's also an additional £108.6 million for transporting and storing the items. But basically, Lady Mone has always denied anything to do with this, but actually her husband, Doug Barrowman, was awarded the contract. She'd recommended it to ministers, this fast-track process. Look, you were working in the Tory government. This whole, there was just absolute madness going on during this time in terms of people getting preferential treatment, people literally setting up. I could have just set up a company saying, I'm a specialist in surgical gowns, pay me millions of pounds. The government failing to source a lot of this stuff themselves, massive competition worldwide for this stuff. But people doing this, companies doing this, basically not fulfilling contracts with taxpayers, which, at the time, regardless, life-saving, gowns to sort of protect people. This is immoral, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and they deserve to pay every single penny and more back. And the most disappointing thing is that we had a lot of local companies who could produce this, who gave us their details, we passed them on. They were never
happened because they weren't friends with a Tory peer. Yep, funny that, eh? Love to hear your reaction to that story. Michelle Mone's linked to this company, £122 million PPE contract. High Court said you have to pay that money back to the taxpayer. We're not going to get a rebate. We won't see a penny of it. But, at least someone's finally being punished for this stuff. Do give us a call if you want to have your say on that. 0344 499 1000. Up next, going to talk about what is going on in America and why is Donald Trump going to ban fat generals? Why is there going to be a weigh-in twice a year at the Department of Defence, and why is the US government effectively shut down? That's up next. This is Talk.
Plus, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk the Home of Common Sense. 10:53 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's go stateside briefly now and talk to Greg Swenson, who's chairman of Republicans Overseas UK, about what the heck is going on in the US government. A very good morning to you, Greg.
Good morning, Julia. Good to see you.
First of all, can we talk about this US government shutdown? It's the first time in 6 years this has happened. It used to be an annual thing for quite a while. Why has it happened, and what does it actually mean for ordinary Americans?
In the short term, it doesn't mean much for ordinary Americans because most of the government jobs that will be furloughed are relatively useless in the grand scheme of things.
So these sort of backroom jobs, but don't. I mean, and how long? Well, how long are they shut down for?
It's unpredictable. I think the longest duration shutdown was the last one in 2018 or the end of 18, early 19. And that was, I think, 35 days. That was the record. But usually they end a lot sooner. This is a bit of gamesmanship on the part of the Democrats. I don't think it will work because really the Republicans have all the cards right now.
But in terms of how the government can be back up and running, I mean, people lose their pay when they're sent home. Yeah. A lot of these, ordinary working Americans. But there has been some threat from Donald Trump of basically sacking a load of these people.
Well, and that's what's interesting, Julie, and that's when I say the Republicans hold all the cards. I mean, they will not be blamed for this. Usually, the party who causes this is the party that rejects what's called a clean bill. So it's basically a bill that doesn't have any more additional law or spending in it, and that's what the Republicans have voted for. That's what they've presented here. So in the past, when Republicans have tried to shut down the government, like in 2013, it's because they tried to add language. They tried to add spending cuts that were not agreed upon prior to the negotiations. So that was a mistake. So this is the case this time around, and I think it will end relatively quickly because if they keep it going too long, the Democrats, then they're going to lose those jobs permanently. And of course, the federal workforce is predominantly Democrat, so I don't think they want to risk that.
Indeed. Well, I mean, some jobs that could be lost permanently is people who get too fat while working for the Department of Defense in the Pentagon. An extraordinary meeting called together of the U.S. military's highest-ranking officers by the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who's been a fairly controversial figure since his appointment. He rallied more than 800 admirals and generals at the Marine Corps base Quantico in Virginia. He said to prepare for war, but he also said that he's going to oust fat generals from the Pentagon, and all staff are going to be weighed twice a year under his new look Department of War, and end to the bearded weirdos, trans soldiers and the like. I mean, how much further does this go, and what's the motivation?
Well, the motivation is clear. He just wants to bring, as he says repeatedly, he wants to bring lethality back to the military and stop with all this silliness, the DEI workshops, and as he said, dudes in dresses, which I thought was funny. I read the speech, but then I actually watched it on television. It was much better live because he is pretty animated. But I do think, it's a common sense revolution again. I mean, we've had 9 months of this, but it really is a common sense revolution. He's just bringing discipline back to the military and getting rid of all these silly experiments with social justice and climate fanaticism.
Well, I mean, we have had a lot of that in our own military here about, don't hire the best people to train as our top fighter jet pilots, because we've got too many white straight men. We need people of colour. We need women. We need gay people. People who I don't even know what the queer thing is. Other than that, probably it's not very attractive. I mean, that's largely what it means, I think, people. But this is the thing. I mean, but there's a very big difference, isn't there, between expecting people to be fighting fit, and saying and then just being a bit bigoted about appearance. Because it's quite clear, he's very trim, pretty dashing man himself, expecting everyone to look like him. But why do all the generals need to be weighed in? I mean, there is an obesity crisis in America. There's no doubt at all about that. And I'm not sure you want a load of your soldiers to be wobbling along the battlefield. You need people who are able to carry their comrades out of harm's way if needed. But is this just sort of kind of fat fascism? Is this just sort of trans bashing, or is there a purpose to it?
Yeah, I don't think it's fat shaming gone wild here. I think look, obviously, if you're in combat positions, then you must be fit. I don't think that's new. That's not new at all. But I think what he's saying is he wants this to be part of the culture. I don't think the generals will be held to the same standards. I think it'll be adjusted for age. It'll be adjusted for height, obviously. So look, this is just a way of kind of rebranding the military, and that's why they went with the new name, Secretary of War, the War Department, not the Secretary of Defense. So, this is just part of the rebranding. I think it's great that, he's not going to have facial hair. He's not going to have, these overweight administrative types. So, look, this is just a return to the core basic principles of the greatest military, ever assembled.
Yeah. And first, this will work out in our favour in the West if the US military is up to scratch. I thought it was interesting also, he rather proudly used a phrase which you see a lot on the internet, the young people are using it, FAFO, F-A-F-O. I'm going to paraphrase. Let's go with mucked around, found out. I mean, he's basically talking about America reasserting itself, but at the same time, we've got a president who says he's not a president for war, he's a president for peace.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, repeated it several times in the talk, and you hear it from the president all the time. The best way to avoid war is to prepare for war. So it's basically the peace through strength argument that goes back to the Reagan years. And they're deadly serious about this.
Okay.
And so, as you saw with Iran, they're not afraid to use military strength. We want to have the best equipment in the world. We have a long way to go, by the way, because I think we've fallen behind in the last, definitely the last 5 years, but I think even in the last few decades.
All right. So, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Greg Spencer, Chairman of Republicans Overseas UK. Well, how would you fancy a twice a year weigh-in at your workplace? Would you pass muster? Well, we'll talk about that with Claire Pearsall, and love to hear your thoughts as well. More on Keir Starmer and his battles with Nigel Farage up next. This is Talk.
Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think that it's a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
According to Keir Starmer, if you think young men that illegally cross the English Channel should be detained and deported, you're racist. In fact, if you even criticise any element of the immigration policies of the last two governments, you're racist. And yet the Home Secretary, Shubham Mahmood, tries to copy our policies.
Patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something smaller, something more like ethno-nationalism, which struggles to accept that someone who looks like me and has a faith like mine can truly be English or British.
Britain is being invaded. Thousands of fighting-age men from countries that despise Britain continue to arrive on our beaches. Our plan is the only appropriate response to a national security emergency. Immediate removal. Deportation is the ultimate deterrent.
Our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are, by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline.
To accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well, this language will incite and encourage the radical left. I'm thinking of Antifa and other organisations like that. It directly threatens the safety of our elected officials and our campaigners. And frankly, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder, I think this is an absolute disgrace.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. It's this talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. It's just approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Lots to talk about today. If you've missed anything of the show, and frankly you are mad to have done so, you can check out my YouTube page. It's called the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Easy to find. You never have to miss a thing if you hit subscribe. Coming up, we're going to be talking more about Keir Starmer accusing Nigel Farage of being a snake oil merchant who does not like or believe in Britain. An extraordinary thing to say in his keynote speech at Labour Party conference yesterday. He launched a series of scathing attacks on the Reform UK leader, accusing him of pursuing the politics of grievance with racist policies. All backed up, by the way, by David Lammy, then claiming that he had flirted with Hitler Youth at some point in his life. He then backtracked and said, oh, well, he's denied it, and I accept that he's denied it. Yeah, bit worried about the libel lawyers getting involved, were you, David Lammy? Nigel Farage later hit back at Keir Starmer, saying he wasn't fit to be Prime Minister. He'd incited violence against Reform UK MPs and himself, and accused him by accusing him of racism. And he warned that Keir Starmer's comments will incite and encourage the radical left. He claimed the PM has descended into the gutter. I mean, who can disagree with that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls to charge the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Today, by the way, 1st of October. When did that happen, by the way? The year is racing past. But today is a day of an anti-immigration protest dubbed the Pink Protest. It's currently taking place in Westminster. The group, which stems from the anti-migrant Hotel Pink Ladies movement in Epping. They are protesting today in response to growing public anger over migrant hotels in local communities. I'll be speaking to one of the organisers a little bit later in this hour. But again, I'm sure Keir Starmer thinks they're all racist. What with being concerned about illegal migration and particularly crime committed by illegal migrants in this country must make them racist, mustn't it? That does seem to be what he thinks. It's just extraordinary. Well, we'll talk about this right now with Claire Pearson. He's a former Conservative government advisor. And Claire, you and I were discussing earlier just the idea that it's a great success for this Labour Prime Minister, not even 15 months in. I mean, later this week, 15 months into his premiership with a massive majority, landslide victory and all of that. And here he is talking about another party and another party leader the whole way through.
But that's all he's spent his 15 months doing, is pointing the finger at other parties and how awful they are and how awful the public is, without actually doing any of the job himself. So if you're the Prime Minister, your party's in there with a massive mandate. Where are your policies? What are you doing? How are you making life better for us?
GB Energy.
Don't hear any of that.
GB Energy. They keep telling me, I don't know what it does. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't produce any energy. I don't know. And that is one of the things they go, GB Energy. We had someone on yesterday saying, I'm building 1.5 million new homes. Okay,
where?
There aren't going to be one. Okay, that's the target at the end of the year and end of the Parliament. They're already way behind schedule. They're not going to... No government has hit its target in the last 20 years. They're not going to hit that target. But claiming that having a target of building 1.5 million new homes, even allowing for the planning changes they're making, even allowing for that's an achievement. I mean, these people, I'm saying this, they're a Tuesday night book club. They are so shocked by actually having to do anything. None of these people have ever started a business. No. I am genuinely, I'm always in awe of people who can start a business, make it grow, employ people, build out. I'm genuinely in awe of it, because it is such incredible skill, and you have to back yourself, and you have to, you have to deliver. And so many of us don't do, we don't have to do that in our jobs. And certainly this lot, most of them, pretty much all of them, public sector, unions, and nothing wrong. Trade unions have done wonderful things for workers over the years, but they just haven't been accountable to anybody. And now they're accountable to the voters, and they don't like it. But what do you make of Keir Starmer? I mean, look, let's just play a couple of clips, because I think it is important just to hear the words. And as you know, I'm not a big fan of long clips, so I always have a rule about how long they can be. We've kept them all under 40 seconds so we don't all doze off. But actually, you wouldn't have dozed off during this section of Keir Starmer's speech, almost an hour long in total. But this is what he had to say about Nigel Farage.
We can all see these snake oil merchants on the right, on the left, but be in no doubt conference, none of them have any interest in national renewal, because decline is good for their business. When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does.
Shall we also hear a little bit of what David Lammy had to say and his sort of apology for what he also had to say about Nigel Farage?
I will leave it for the public to come to their own judgments about someone who once flirted with Hitler Youth when he was younger. That is for the public. He has denied it, and so I accept that he has denied it, and I would like to clarify that position because in the end the Prime Minister was keen for us to focus on the policies, not the individual.
It's the Deputy Prime Minister of this country. Just let that sink in. The Deputy Prime Minister of this country represents us on the world stage. He went fishing with the, you know, without a licence, obviously, with the Vice President of the United States. I mean, it's an absolute embarrassment. No wonder Nigel Farage issued a very lengthy, 7-minute statement responding to the attacks that were made to him. But this is a small part of it. This is what Nigel Farage had to say.
I'm sorry to say, I now believe that he is unfit to be the Prime Minister of our country. The Prime Minister has decided to descend into the gutter and all of his cabinet with him. Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. This language will incite and encourage the radical left. It directly threatens the safety of our elected officials and our campaigners. And frankly, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder, I think this is an absolute disgrace.
And I agree with Nigel. I really do. Claire Pistol, now there are two big issues there. One is, three really. One is, why are you spending your time talking about another party and their policies and not your own if you're leading the Prime Minister? That's not leading, that's following. Two, saying that policies are racist, but no, not the leader. Well, he's saying that. I think David Lammy went further, and not the voters. Can you really separate those two things, and do you think that's how most voters will see it? But also, and he got the issue of basically inciting violence, not directly, of course, he's not done anything illegal, but basically saying this is an awful human being. Well, you know, when twisted people can justify then violence against someone because they're a bad person, just in the wake of Charlie Kirk. We've had 2 MPs murdered in the last 10 years, and numerous threats. I mean, numerous people are behind bars now for threats they've made to elected politicians and campaigners. Nigel Farage himself has to have security. His security has just been downgraded by 75%. On what planet that's happened? That's just immoral. That's happened. But those are 3 completely separate issues there with that speech. Do you want to take those to task?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Keir Starmer said. It was the people on the right and people on the left. So what? So this is everybody he's now tarring with a brush. So everybody that's on the left, on the right, who basically doesn't think like he does, then they're wrong. They're bad people. They're extreme. So
I mean, you can't just say I disagree with them and I want to explain to you why I think they're wrong and why my policies were. That's fair.
Absolutely.
That's political debate.
I'd much rather have that. I'd much rather have a conversation with somebody that I didn't agree with, but it was on the line, a sensible conversation that you could understand where they were coming from. You don't agree with it, it doesn't matter, but you can have a grown-up debate.
But the I don't agree with your policies, you must be racist and a bad person. That's very different.
And this is going to cause some real hag with people like Nigel Farage without security being around.
Do you think the average voter who either is saying they're going to vote reform or considering voting reform, do you think they'll go, oh well, no, fair point, Prime Minister? I think this is. I would be surprised if reform didn't get a 2 or 3 point jump in the polls as a result of this.
I suspect that they will, because it's going to push more people to say, how dare you think that I'm wrong, I'm racist, I'm far right, whatever it may be. They're just going to double down and say, no, I was right to vote for Nigel Farage or whoever they voted for and not the Labour Party, and it's just going to cement their position. So if you were looking for floating voters, you've now pushed them even further away from you.
And floating voters is where these things are decided. And in terms of the violence, I mean, Zia Youssef, the former party chairman, head of policy, it's difficult to keep up with the job movement in reform sometimes, with all due respect to you, Mr. Youssef, saying, Parliament has decided in their infinite wisdom that they should cut his security by 75%. I mean, and Nigel Farage, I mean, I remember, so I think Aaron Banks was paying for his security for a long time. This is a man who basically, he can't go to a restaurant without people checking there. There are places he prefers to go because he knows there are 2 exits. I mean, no one else has to think like this. Like, I know a number of people who are not public about the security they've had to have as a result of public comments they've made that are not remotely inciting violence themselves, but just opinions which either incite, like, Islamist lunatics or the Antifa far left. And it is outrageous that any democratic politician, elected or unelected in this country, should ever face this sort of thing. But also, crucially, think about Nigel Farage is he's unfailingly polite.
Yeah,
he really. I mean, he's a complete gentleman. He really is.
Yeah.
I will take him to task on, like, I don't agree with your policy on Ukraine or this. Or, I will. You know me. I take people. I don't care whether I agree with this or that view. I will take people to task on things. But he is, and like Richard Tice, unfailingly, he's the politest, most gentlemanly people you will ever meet.
And I would much rather deal with people like that in politics, because you can have a proper discussion with them. And fundamentally, I disagree with some of the things that Nigel Farage says, but he has always given me airtime. He has always given me the space to have those discussions with him in a robust manner. But afterwards, you shake hands, thank you very much.
And it was interesting that he was saying that about the Prime Minister. This is a man he could have a chat to. And that's the thing people often don't realise, even though people could be barking each other across the floor in the House of Commons, and then they'll have a chat on the way out. Yeah. But in the same way, I can have a massive big debate and completely disagree with someone on air. It's not an act on their part or an act on my part. We completely disagree about that. But I don't feel the need to hate them or to abuse them, either to their face or afterwards. And there are some people I think are idiots, and I'll say I think that person's an idiot, but I don't think someone's an idiot because they disagree with me.
But you're also not going to go and stir up hatred towards that person unnecessarily. Why would you?
But also, crucially, words like racist, there is an argument where calling someone far-right racist, I used to threaten to sue people on social media, and people back down really bloody quickly once you call the lawyer. I actually messaged one guy, said, just want to clarify, do you own your own house? And he said, what? I said, no, I just need to know you own your own house so you can pay my legal fees, because you're going to pay my legal fees. He goes, oh, you can't prove you're not racist. I'm like, well, I hate to tell you, the law is that you have to prove that I am. And I can absolutely assure you, you're going to find that absolutely impossible to do, because I don't say or do racist things, either in my public or my private life. You could have my phone. I have never, because I don't have those feelings. That wasn't how I was raised. My parents would disown me if I ever had those views. I also think, I remember, it's like, you're racist. I remember sitting there thinking, I'm really pretty sure that my first love of my life, who was an 18-month-long relationship, who happened to be a black guy, I think he might have thought it was weird that I dated him. I'm pretty sure that the black family I au paired for, looking after their 3-year-old, would have thought it was a bit weird. Again, doesn't prove I'm not racist. I just thought it was a weird thing for a racist to have done, But then, oh no, you're an Islamophobe. Yeah, okay. They just go, these people get away with blue murder, frankly, by saying these things. But the thing is, people have been throwing out racist, fascist, far right, people like Nigel Farage, people like me, for so long. Those words just, they used to hurt. How could anyone? That's horrible. Now it's just like, you're kind of like Wonder Woman. The basically, like, the shots are coming at you, and you just got your arms up with your, and it doesn't hurt anymore, because they've taken away the meaning of those words, which I think is an abomination, because those words should hurt, because they're appalling. Frankly, other than a paedophile, calling someone a racist is pretty much the next worst thing you can call someone. But no one thinks it means anything anymore. It just means people are sane and have got eyes, and they can see that the country has changed. But the only people who've mentioned race this week, Labour.
Yes, and they seem obsessed by it. And Nigel Farage seems to live rent-free in Keir Starmer's head at the moment. But to tar everybody with the same brush is never a good thing. If you're looking forward to a set of elections next year where you hope to do well, don't call people extreme, racist or wrong. I always think that just stick to those
people aren't keen on
right.
that. Just so you know, Net Zero Secretary, basically Energy Poverty Secretary, Ed Miliband, that's his correct job title. He's been speaking at Labour Party conference just now.
Has he?
Hey, look on the bright side. However bad your day's going, you're not listening to Ed Miliband in Labour Party conference. I'm just saying, look on the bright side every day of the week. He's called Reform UK ideological extremists. Hello, Mr. Pot. Meet Mr. Kettle. This is a zealot. He said Elon Musk should get the hell out of our politics. Here we go. Elon Musk, he says he incites violence on our streets. He didn't incite violence on our streets when he spoke at that conference recently. He calls for the overthrow of our elected government. He's an enabler of disinformation through X. Disinformation, Ed Miliband.
Okay.
He thinks he can tell us how to run Britain. Now, I have to say, I don't really like Elon Musk telling us how we can run our country. Conference, I have a message for Elon Musk. Get the hell out of our politics in our country. I'll tell you what, if Elon Musk had the same politics as him, he would be absolutely loving him being involved. They were quite happy when they were trying to throw people like me and others off social media, whether it was YouTube or X, because we had different opinions than them on issues like Brexit, like COVID. But, Ed Miliband, I mean, mate, it's just embarrassing. Get the hell out of our politics, Ed Miliband. That's what I say to you.
Yes.
Let's also talk about that breaking news that we had just before the top of the hour, that this PPE contractor firm linked to the Tory peer Michelle Mone, her of the bras, breached a £122 million contract that was commissioned by the Health Department during COVID. The High Court has ruled they have to pay back that sum of money. They basically said they would supply surgical gowns during the COVID pandemic. It was a consortium led by Lady Mone's husband, Doug Barrowman. She claimed she knew nothing to do with this company, apart from the fact that it was only when secret documents emerged that showed that he was actually as part of this. So she said she denied any involvement, but it was revealed that she was the source of referral. So basically, Tory peer says, that fast-track process that your lot set up, I'm going to blame her now. She was a Tory. You were a Tory advisor during that period, weren't you?
I wasn't.
Had you left
I'd been
then?
sacked by that point.
Okay.
So I was all right.
Well, lucky for you. So you weren't. Okay, I'll let you off that bit. This VIP lane. Basically, hello, you're an MP or a Tory peer. Do you know any companies? So this company's basically set up, to do this. This is PPE MedPro, sorry. And basically they've supplied these gowns that were absolutely unfit for purpose. They weren't sterile. They were no sorting use at all. We paid for them. Totally exploited, generosity and goodwill. And yes, an abject lack of basic oversight by civil servants in this period, but they're going to have to pay it back. That is at least a small victory for common sense, isn't it?
I think it is. They need to pay it back in one go and some. What I don't want to see is that it's 122 million spread over the next sort of 50 years.
I want it with interest, and I want a fine as well.
Yeah, no, they absolutely should, and they need to be named and shamed for doing it. And we need more decisions like that, because I believe that there are more companies out there who have pulled the same stunt.
But also true, I don't know whether she had the whip taken away from her or not, but Michelle Mone basically saying, I had nothing to do with this. You literally referred the company that your husband had set up to do this, so and they made a whole load of money. Here's my thing: I've got no problem with people, being paid to do a job which was needed. No one's no one's angry at nurses. You got extra shifts during COVID, for goodness' sake. But the people who went, it's a pandemic. People who had their freedoms desperately taken away. At the time, people were very scared. People, dying. People dying of non-COVID things are not getting treated. Kids left out of, unable to go to school. All of the damage that's done to our economy. The idea that there were people who went. I'm going to make some money out of this. I just think they're despicable. And I've always said this, when they announced all this money, whether it was furlough, whether it was companies getting loans and the like, David Cameron, his first thought as just a recently former Prime Minister, his first thought was, how can I make money for the new company I'm working on? Those people should have been told when they made the announcement, we're going to give out these loans, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Anybody caught fiddling, anyone who's done this honestly, because we want to get the money too quickly, you will face not only paying back 3 times what you borrowed, and we'll take your house, we'll take your business, you're going to go to prison for 10 years. We will specially build prisons for those people. But we might not get you for another 10 years, but we will get you, and you will go to prison for 10 years for exploiting that. I think that message should have been made loud and clear. I know someone who works for a business where she found out by accident that her husband had been put on furlough for the entire period by the company boss, and was paid as normal, but we, the taxpayer, were paying his wages. The company operated absolutely as normal. And I mean, that's theft. The man, the boss. So, but if she goes to the authorities, right, her husband loses his job because the company will be closed down. Yeah. So what's the dilemma there? And he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't, he carried on working and was paid the same amount of money. He made no benefit whatsoever. But the company boss totally and utterly stole from British taxpayers. I want that person behind bars.
Yeah, and I think there are going to be a lot of those people. The bounce back loans especially was
we're
open to
talking
abuse.
billions and billions
It was
and
just
billions.
a blank check.
They stole from taxpayers at a time
It's
when
fraud.
people would... It's immoral. It's immoral is what it is. Let me also come back to another story we were talking about just before the top of the hour. What's going on in America? The Defence Secretary Peter Hegseth. Now you've come from a military family, and your son has been, military cadet, but this is Peter Hegseth. They say quite a controversial figure. He kind of a bit Mr. Swagger, isn't he? But he's basically called a big meeting of all his generals and admirals and basically said, we're going to have a new look US military, no beardy weirdos, no one trans, no one all this. So he says basically, and no one fat. He's no fat generals. There's going to be a twice yearly weigh-in for staff. What do you make of that? I'm going to leave it open. What do you make of that? Because part of me is like, yeah, sort of fair enough. But part of me is like, oh, come on.
You kind of think when you're dealing with anything in the military, there is a way you turn yourself out. And my child is a prime example of this. For 5 years at his school, his hair had to be a certain length.
That's the deal.
You couldn't have it. It had to be under your beret or your cap.
And why does that
down.
matter in the military?
Because it is part of taking care of yourself. It's about having pride in your appearance. It is about being clean and tidy. If you've got long hair that's all over your face, if you were in a war situation, you can't just go, oh, bear with me a minute while I sweep my fringe out of my eyes. You have to be ready to go, and you have to have respect in yourself.
And is there an element also willingness to conform?
I think there's a little bit of that. If you're all got to, you all have to be the same, and that's the point. You are there as a team. You're not there as an individual. So no one person is better than another.
And there's an argument. Certainly, if you're on the front line, being obese is probably not a good thing. If you need to fight in enemy territory or carry a. But again, the same with like women. I'm not sure a 5'4" woman can carry a 6'3" bloke off the battlefield if he's injured. So it doesn't work.
If I want a commando on the front line, I want them to be physically fit and able to do their job.
Absolutely.
I don't need them to be a bit tubby. And then they can't run as fast, because that's the whole point.
But what about the generals? What about the paper pushers? Is it saying you need to lead so others can follow?
I'm a little bit more relaxed, I think, when it comes to the generals, because they have also given their service. They have got to that rank. They have done their duty.
They're not on the front line.
They're not on the front line.
What about the trans? What about the idea on trans? Again, I think there's a very strong argument that someone who, again, if you in your spare time want to wear a dress, I couldn't care less. But if someone is genuinely so deluded to believe they are born in the wrong body, I'm not sure I want them to have access to heavy weaponry. I mean that. This is something you can live your life. That's fine. But the key thing is, fundamentally, that this is something that has until very recently been treated as a mental health disorder.
Yeah,
it's dysphoria. It's believing you've got one too many legs is body dysmorphia. So is extreme anorexia or bulimia. Yeah. But so is believing you're born in the wrong body. This is not true, because you are. If you think that you shouldn't have a penis and you're a man, then you've got a mental health problem. Now, I'm not, again, people go, oh, that's outrageous to talk about it like it. No, but that's what it is.
You also wonder why they want to go into the military, which is not aggressive, I don't think that's the right word, but it is a conformist place. It is an orderly place.
If that's not you, then maybe...
Why are you going in there as, as he said, dudes in dresses? Why would you want to do that in a place that wears khaki? That's it.
I don't know, maybe khaki's your colour. I don't know. 11:26 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. I want to hear from you. Lots of calls on the board. Keep them coming. Lots of messages as well about Keir Starmer accusing Nigel Farage of being a snake oil merchant he does not like or believe in Britain. In return, Nigel Farage has said very clearly this is a man who is not up to the job of being Prime Minister. Accused him of basically inciting violence against him and other reform campaigners. What do you say to that? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's get to some more of your calls, 0344 499 1000, before we go to our next guest. Jason is on the line in Wiltshire. Jason, what do you make of the war of words between Starmer and Farage?
Morning, Julia. Thanks for taking the call, because after last week, I think we had a little minor disagreement, so I'm glad you've let me come back on your show.
Why would I not let you back on the show because we disagree about? I mean, bearing in mind, for those who don't know, he was also one of my mum's patients when she was a GP, and he disagreed with her all the time, and she still let him in.
Yeah, well, yeah, she had to. But, yeah, it's the old... the conference, I'm actually finding it quite exciting, and I sit there and like a Cheshire cat watching it. He's up the creek without a paddle. He's sinking. And if you look at him, I think he's realised he's done for. And all he's going to try now, I call it backhand dirty tactics of let's throw the race card at Nigel Farage to see, you know, if we can sort of...
Let something stick. But that's the thing. Here's the thing, though. He made it really clear. Reform is the challenge, not the Tories. They didn't get a look in at all. Do you think that Keir Starmer believes what he says about reform and about their policies?
Do you know what? I don't think the bloke really knows what to believe. He's just a cretin. I can't really describe him as anything else.
He's an empty vessel. I mean, he's genuinely an empty vessel. I mean, he's not stupid, you know. He's got, you know, he's got pieces of paper and job and CV that suggests he's not stupid, you know.
But Diane Abbott wasn't stupid. She's got a degree in history and everything else. But if you look at her, she can't string a sentence together.
I know, it's quite painful. It's really...
It's how he calls Nigel racist.
He says he didn't call Nigel Farage racist. He said the policies are racist, not the voters, not Nigel Farage. That's a big distinction. Is that a distinction that you believe is true?
No, what I was going to say was what Comrade Starmer needs to work out is the difference between racist policies and someone sort of, or a government being sort of a bit patriotic about their country, or thinking, hang on, we've got a problem here. There's something that's costing this country millions and millions and millions. We need to sort it out. All reform's done is just addressed this big issues of problems, hindsight's made. There's nothing racist about that. I just don't get what the bloke gets. Is he getting a backhander or something for having a load of illegals coming in? I mean, what is the...
that's a better explanation for their policy than anything else, isn't it? Jason, I love it. Thank you very much. Always keep on calling in. Thank you very much. I tell you what, we've got the regulars on today. I mean, there's so many calls on the board, but I'm sorry, we can never say no to the wonderful, the brilliant, take the floor, Georgina in London. Good morning to you, Georgina.
Good morning, my darling. It's lovely to talk to you. Hello, Claire.
Hello. Oh, she's so happy you said hello to her.
I listen to the toolmaker's son at his pulpit, and obviously this is a man fighting for his political life, Julia. How dare he say that Nigel Farage doesn't love his country or his flag, when every fibre in Nigel's being wants to preserve Britain, its culture, its heritage, and our freedoms. This kind of speech that Keir gave was the ultimate in hate speech, and it's dangerous. And it's coming from a man who's having people incarcerated for doing exactly what he did yesterday. It's also the kind of speech that puts a target on the back of every political body that does not share the authoritarian, dystopian, Orwellian views of Keir Starmer and his party. As for David Lammy, where there's no sense, there's no feeling. In my view, you have, and back in my day, you had to have a modicum of intelligence to have a career in politics. But obviously with the Labour Party, these have changed with time. Starmer talked about his pride in our flag when his allegiance isn't to our flag, Julia, but to the EU flag or the Palestine flag, as it's always been his goal to wedge us back into the European Union. Yep. And anybody in Britain, not at the Labour conference, daring to wave their flag are branded far-right, racist, bigot or Nazi. He had the audacity to talk about freedom of speech when we as a population have been silenced. He talks about inclusion and division when the division has been brought about by his government and the inclusion has brought this country to its knees. Yep. He talks of lying politicians when he has lied more in his short term in office than the governments that have gone before him who have served numerous full terms. He talks about a united England when England no longer has borders and we're letting terrorists from overseas into the bosom of our once great nation. Our women and children being abused by men who have totally different cultural backgrounds. And we are forced to stand and watch this government and judiciary do nothing. Without borders, we have no country, Julia. Without a strong economy, we have no growth. Without the British people, we no longer have a culture. This is the Britain that Starmer wants. He has an authoritarian, dystopian, all-powerful government with a population that has no power or voice. So, as not to question their authority. He was right when he said that there was a line, and he has crossed it by a farmer's mile, and he will face the consequences as Nigel has just taken up the gauntlet.
Goodness me. I mean, anyone not applauding? Stand up, everybody. Yeah. Applaud that. Georgina, I mean, nailed it, as you always do. Nailed it. I don't need to come back at all. That's it. Georgina has spoken. The country is listening. Thank you very much indeed. Going to take a quick break. We're setting a high bar for the calls today, guys. Lots on the board. We're going to get to more in this half hour. I'm also going to talk about that Pink Ladies protest outside the House of Commons today, although Commons isn't sitting. And we're also going to be talking about why Starmer says I will never surrender our flag. But yeah, you kind of already have, as Georgina points out. That's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 11:39 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and I'm temporarily standing in for Georgina from London, who is taking over the show. With all due respect to my colleagues who tell you, should Georgina just do Fridays now?
Yes.
When I'm not here? Because, I mean, genuinely, she's She nails it.
Amazing.
She nails it. I really think that there are so many politicians, particularly Keir Starmer after yesterday, who should listen to people like Georgina, who this is what people are thinking. This is how people who really care about their country think. And this is the advice I give you. Instead of just listening to, I don't know, I'm assuming your speech yesterday was written by ChatGPT, because it's the only explanation for it, Claire, is purpose, is it not?
Oh, well, I think so. And somebody like Georgina, who isn't a politician, but can put her case across passionately, concisely, without pointing the finger at anybody else, saying it was their fault.
Yeah, I know, it's
Absolutely
weird,
amazing.
isn't it?
They need to learn from it.
Don't think she's a fan of Starmer, but there we are. Let's talk to Mark Littlewood now. He's the director of Popular Conservatism. I don't know, Mark, if you were just listening to Georgina, talking a lot more sense than the Prime Minister yesterday, managing not to call anyone racist.
Yeah, a bit of a low bar to talk more sense than the Prime Minister, but I agree, she cleared it with aplomb, Julia. I'll agree with that. Yeah.
No, let's talk of plombs on this show. What do you make? I've got to ask you, what you make of Keir Starmer there, accusing Nigel Farage of being a snake oil merchant. He says he doesn't like our country, doesn't believe in our country. We've had, David Lammy talking about him flirting with Hitler Youth and then having sort of backtrack. We had Diane Abbott last night on Newsnight. Apparently it's to show people apparently it still exists, saying that, I'm all for people giving him a good kicking. We've got Wes Streeting earlier in the week talking about how Farage is a con artist. He's non-stop. And then Nigel Farage basically issuing a statement yesterday going, look, you're basically inciting violence against reform. You're starring everybody and saying our policies are racist. You're saying we're racist, and you're saying voters are racist. And you're basically, a few weeks after Charlie Kirk, basically kind of giving people justification to attack us. What do you make of that war of words?
Nigel Farage must be punching the air along with the entire Reform Party press operation. You cannot buy publicity like this.
This is true.
It needs to be gifted to you, typically gifted to you by someone extremely stupid. And that's what the Labour Party has basically done. I don't think any of the attacks on Nigel Farage stick at all. In fact, I think people will be pretty repulsed by what senior Labour figures have said about him. And this idea that he doesn't love the country, I think Nigel Farage is in the position that many of us are in. We love our country, we just don't like the way it's going at the moment.
It's because we love our country.
We want to save the country from the disaster it's in.
Yeah, it's because we love our country and believe it's great and has greater days ahead rather than behind it, that we want it to be the country it should be.
Yeah. And the other thing which I found toe-curling, really, Julia, was all this sort of waving of Union Jacks. Look, I'm very happy to see the waving of Union Jacks at all sorts of events.
Instead of Palestinian flags, that's a start.
Yeah, but it reminded me a bit when I was at school and I'd be in a school hall with 1,000 other boys sort of muttering and droning our way through some Christian hymn at assembly. It wasn't as if we were engaged with the rapture of Christian spirituality. We were sort of doing it begrudgingly. And that seemed very much what the Labour Party conference looked like. Yeah. And it just seems to me that they're completely out of sync with public opinion on a whole load of things. It was just a few weeks ago that Keir Starmer claimed the Union flag stood for diversity. Yeah. No, it doesn't. No, it just really doesn't.
But again, also they're the same people
needs to stand for diversity.
Yeah, the same people who say that that migrants who've come here who apparently could be deported by Nigel Farage, and he wants to deport people who either are here illegally or who are not making a contribution, not working on benefits, and not a net contributor to this country, not speaking enough English and things like that. He says that they are the backbone and they're the absolute key part of our country. And it's like, no, they're not. They're the opposite of that. And this idea that we are a nation of immigrants, again, no, we're not. We certainly weren't until 20 years ago. It's almost like the people who claim to love the country, they haven't been paying attention to this country.
Yes, or they're trying to create a new country. You're quite right. Yeah. Historically, Julia, we are not a nation built on immigration. We are very different to the history of the United States in that regard. We have typically, over the centuries, had a stable indigenous white population. Now, that can change. I'm pro-immigration in some aspects, but the idea that you then rewrite history... the next thing I'm waiting to hear is that the St George's Cross representing St George, who was a Turk, is a representation of how much we love all the Turkish barber shops that are cropping up on every high street corner. That's the sort of nonsense, the sort of retrofitting of history that we're increasingly hearing from those who I think don't really understand what patriotism is.
No, indeed. Well, again, and no wonder a lot of people don't, because what kids are being taught in our schools is quite shocking. Again, they're inundated with propaganda, whether it's about climate change or immigration, trans ideology, and they really, I don't think most parents have a clue how much their children are being indoctrinated. But a school, the Broad Oak School in Partington in Greater Manchester, had to apologise after a teacher made a presentation to students which was criticised for being impartial and unbalanced. Partial and unbalanced, I'd say. The school teacher admitted telling students that St George's flags can be viewed as racist symbols. I mean, on what basis? And this is, of course, after this trend of St George's flags being hung from lampposts around the UK. And this all started after, I think, was it Birmingham City Council, where they had a whole load of Palestinian flags being hung, and people went, why are there a load of Palestinian flags being hung on our, but we would like the Union flag, our country's flag. And yet, I bet if a teacher had said that the Palestinian flag could be taught to be racist, I bet they'd be being disciplined by their school. It is just extraordinary. We are the only country in the world that teaches that the images, the emblems of our nation, our nationhood, of our culture, of our history, of our people are racist.
Yeah, I mean, I think this teacher went on to say, if I read the story correctly, that the St George's flag or the Union flag are not intrinsically racist.
That's nice.
But some people do see them that way. Well, the people who see them that way tend to be lefty woke teachers in our state comprehensive schools. Those are the ones who seem to see it that way. It is extraordinary. I mean, unfortunately, I think our education system and to some degree the curriculum has fallen into the hands of people who don't much like our country and are determined to teach children that they shouldn't like it either. What I'm interested to know is what disciplinary action has been taken against this teacher. So it's one thing for the head to send out a letter to the parents bemoaning what was said and apologising if any offence was caused, but that seems to me insufficient. If we have teachers teaching this sort of stuff in classrooms, in my view, they should be removed, not just a letter sent to parents apologising.
Sent to the re-education camp. I mean, who knows? Who else needs to be re-educated? The Bar Council. They represent barristers in England and Wales. Very, very, very crucial job. If you ever get accused of a crime, charged with a crime, go to court, you will need a barrister to represent you. They've got a 6-week summer internship scheme. Absolutely. I mean, extraordinary opportunity for people to get on that, to make their way into a very difficult career to get into. It's only going to allow black or mixed-race university students and graduates to join. White students are barred from this programme. It's known as the 10,000 Black Interns programme and described by, the independent MP Rupert Lowe as pure racism. There's no doubt at all that some of the top professions in this country are very difficult for kids from, let's go with ordinary backgrounds to come from. There's a lot of sharp-elbowed middle classes. People, mums like me, who can help provide links, OK? But why on earth would, say, for instance, a black kid that's gone to Eton be allowed to go on this programme, but a white kid growing up on a housing estate in, say, Liverpool, where the Labour conference is right now, would not be judged to be someone deserving of this? I mean, this is racism, isn't it?
Oh, straight down the line, racism. Racism goes both ways. I mean, I don't think you should discriminate on the grounds of race whatsoever. No. If you want to sort of have a beady eye on, there could be a lot of great raw talent out there amongst young people that hasn't yet flourished because they didn't have the opportunity to, complete their A-levels, go to a top university, go to university at all or whatever. By all means, try and pick out that potential. But to do it on the grounds of race is absolutely extraordinary. Can you imagine if it was the other way around? Only whites need apply. I mean, it's just extraordinary. And, I think we need to sort of get back to the key Martin Luther King motto. He would be spinning in his grave about this. You judge people on the content of their character, not the colour of their skin. Well, the Bar Council are doing exactly that. They're judging people on the colour of their skin, not the content of their character.
Just
outrageous.
It really is, and it does need to be called out. And again, this idea there's a sort of historical wrong that needs to be righted, and it's like, no, lots of the top jobs are largely white because we're a largely white country, and the large proportion of the population population who are not white in this country are fairly recent arrivals, or the children of recent arrivals, and there is a natural progression in every country from that. Again, I just find it extraordinary that people stir up this stuff. I really do. I must ask you about this, as someone popular conservatism, but also you're at the Institute of Economic Affairs, a free market think tank. We had a lot of madness going on during COVID and during lockdown, and one of the mad things were these VIP lanes for either MPs or peers, particularly Tories, to say, oh hello, I know somebody who's got a business that can provide just with some latex gloves for the nurses or some PPE gowns for the hospitals. One of those such people, it turns out, was the Tory peer Michelle Mone, although she pretended to have nothing to do with it later in all documents. It turns out that she basically touted her own business set up by her own husband, Doug Barrowman. This was a company called PPE MedPro to provide 25 million gowns to hospitals. 122 million pounds they were going to be paid for this. Turns out they were faulty, they weren't sterile. Court this morning has ruled that this was incorrect, improper, and has ordered the company to repay that money. What do you make of that case?
Well, good that the money should be repaid. It's a straight breach of contract, isn't it? If you order something that isn't up to snuff, you get your money back. Yeah. So the UK taxpayer should get their 122 million back. Look, it's a tricky one, this. I think, Julia, you and I would agree that the government handled COVID extraordinarily badly and often quite madly. But let's imagine a national emergency where you suddenly need to lay your hands on a lot of stuff. Could be medical stuff, could be metal, could be God only knows, silicon chips, God only knows what. It does seem to me in that scenario that it's not unreasonable for the government to say, look, has anyone got any contacts at all? Yeah. Does anyone in Parliament know anybody who makes this stuff? But there were no even
basic cursory checks made. I made more checks on the bloke who comes to clean my windows than these people made on people they were handing millions or even billions of pounds to.
Well, I think that you're right on the checks, and I think you suggested that earlier in the show, Julia, as well, that there should have been a much clearer undertaking. So great. You're in the VIP fast lane. OK, potentially we can get millions of medical gloves or masks or whatever else we're supposed to need from this company. However, you got to sign in blood on the dotted line that you understand very clearly the spec that we're asking for. And if you do not deliver to that spec, we will come after you, not just to recoup our money, but for the distraction and confusion and discombobulation that you have proven.
Could have cost
VIP
lives.
fast lines, yes, but with a big list of T's and C's attached to them.
Absolutely. Basic stuff. Again, the fact that no one in our government, no civil servant appears to be able to write a decent contract or read one, I find utterly despairing. Mark Littlewood, Director of Popular Conservatism, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Quick break, then we'll take your calls. More from Claire Pearsall. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer with the other home of common sense, and of Claire Pissell on a Wednesday, former Conservative government advisor. Don't worry, she left office before COVID pandemic and all the problems we had since, and when Michelle Mone and her husband were basically making a fortune out of selling faulty PPE to the government, to you and me, spending that money, ordering those faulty gowns that couldn't be used. Would that have cost lives? We don't know, but they've been told it's going to cost them a pretty penny paying back that £122 million. I think it should cost them a lot more. But Claire Pissell, what do you make of this court decision?
Good.
Yeah,
it's
good.
Exactly the right decision that needs to be made. That money should come back to the taxpayer, plus a fine.
Plus some.
And as you said earlier, I'd like to see some prison sentences being handed down for people that have abused this. This is our money.
I really feel strongly about this, that should have been made really, really clear. There's a lot of people, whether it's people claiming dole money that they didn't know, lots of organised criminals, there's a lot that went on, and we're still paying for a lot of it. Massive loans were taken out to pay for a load of this, and we're all paying that off. And so when these people did it, it's not a victimless crime. You and I are paying taxes to pay for the debt on that interest, the interest on that debt, which is paying for all of that. So, and again, we always knew it was going to happen. Anyway, let's go to your calls. Lots you still want to get in touch about Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage, that war of words launched by Keir Starmer. Jane is on the line in Bournemouth. She called in on 0344 499 1000. Jane, good morning. What do you want to say?
Hi, thank you for taking my phone call.
Thanks for calling.
I was just horrified yesterday by Labour's rhetoric.
Yeah.
I may be looking through rose-tinted spectacles because of my age, but I don't recall Labour behaving this way.
No.
I know people don't like Blair, but I don't recall this sort of rhetoric.
No.
I thought it was disgraceful. Everything is racist. There doesn't seem to be any nuance in our institutions or our government today. As a ex-mature student at university, the same is happening.
Yeah.
Everything is racist. Nobody.
A little racist cup of tea I'm sipping from. A little racist camera. You're on a racist phone. We're all. It's lost. The words lost all meaning.
I have attempted to discuss critical race theory and Brexit as somebody who tends to like vote sometimes left, a bit of right, and in between. I was not allowed to do so. This discourse has permeated every institution. And I'm horrified by it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way, Jane. I really do. And I think that's why it's a really dumb move by Starmer. I'm going to have to be moved on because I want to squeeze David in for the top of the hour. I so appreciate that. And I completely agree. I think everyone does with what you said. David is on the line in Gloucestershire. Good morning to you, David. What do you want to say?
Good morning, Julia. How are we all?
Good, thank you. What do you want to tell us, my love?
Well, there was two things, really. First of all, with the David Lammy thing, he said he so-called apology.
It wasn't an apology.
He said Nigel Farage denied it.
Yeah.
Well, you made it up, mate.
Yeah. He said I accept he denies it. But he didn't accept that he hadn't done it. Flirted with Hitler Youth.
He denied it. He just, what do you mean? You made it up, mate. Which is what he should have said. And the other thing is, this whole rhetoric over Farage and reform, I think shows this country's in a bigger mess. Yesterday we had, 0.3 growth. There was an oil refinery in Lincolnshire went under.
Yeah.
We've got inflation running at, 3-4%?
Yeah. Unemployment,
Unemployment. This country is an absolute, and I think the whole thing is going to go bang, especially after the next budget.
Yeah.
And I think they know it. And
I think you may be right. As I said a bit earlier at the beginning of the show, I think this country's got, and Keir Starmer's got bigger problems than Nigel Farage. His problem is him. Thank you very much indeed, David. Lots more great calls to get on during the next hour. Lots more to talk about. We're going to talk to someone who's a long-time Labour Party donor and supporter, but no longer thinks they're up to the job. We'll talk about that with Sasha Lord up next. This is Talk.
Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think it is a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
According to Keir Starmer, if you think young men that illegally cross the English Channel should be detained and deported, you're racist. In fact, if you even criticise any element of the immigration policies of the last two governments, you're racist. And yet the Home Secretary, Shubham Mahmood, tries to copy our policies.
Patriotism, a force for good, is turning into something smaller, something more like ethno-nationalism, which struggles to accept that someone who looks like me and has a faith like mine can truly be English or British.
Britain is being invaded. Thousands of fighting-age men from countries that despise Britain continue to arrive on our beaches. Our plan is the only appropriate response to a national security emergency. Immediate removal. Deportation is the ultimate deterrent.
Our flags, flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism.
Labour says these policies are racist and immoral, and by implication, Reform supporters, Reform voters, Reform sympathisers are racist too. Yes, if you think we should control our borders, you are, by the definition of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, all racists.
We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline.
To accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well,
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense and probably racists. I mean, if the Prime Minister's looking, I'm sure we're on that list, aren't we, of the racists? You know, you're a racist for listening, I'm a racist for talking. Everyone's a racist now. Do you own a Union flag or an England flag? Yep. Probably racist. Not overjoyed with the fact that we have, I mean, extraordinary numbers, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people coming to this country completely legally, many in very low-paid jobs, bringing their families and not net contributors to this country, coming to this country and being told, like it or lump it, well, you're probably a racist too. Well, that's what the Prime Minister pretty much said. Although he denies it. No, he wasn't calling Keir Starmer a racist yesterday. No. Sorry, Nigel Farage a racist. He wasn't calling Reform voters racist, just the policies that he proposes and Reform voters support. Well, I wonder what you make of that. Lots of you have been getting in touch, and a lot of you very, very angry about what Keir Starmer had to say about Nigel Farage, calling him a snake oil merchant who does not like Britain and who does not believe in Britain. In that speech to the Labour Party conference yesterday, which was far more about Nigel Farage than anything that Labour government was actually going to do or had got done, he launched a scathing attack on the Reform UK leader. He accused him of pursuing the politics of grievance, as I say, with racist policies. Now, Nigel Farage has hit back at Keir Starmer. He said he wasn't fit to be Prime Minister, that he'd incited violence against not just him and Reform UK MPs, but also campaigners by accusing him of racism. Reminded him about Charlie Kirk being assassinated just a few weeks ago, simply for expressing different views and being vilified by the left. Well, we're going to talk about all of that. I want to hear your thoughts on all of that as well. 0344 499 1000. Lots of people already on the board. Text us on 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Also going to be talking about the Labour deputy leadership race, which is hotting up to the extent that anyone gives two hoots about these things. But the deputy leadership front runner, Lucy Powell, has said the new trans rules are not right and should be reviewed by MPs. The recently sacked cabinet minister appears to suggest that the language is not right in guidance advising workplaces to protect single-sex spaces. I mean, women who hate women. There we go. And also the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has said that giving weight loss jabs to millions of patients will help finally defeat obesity. Well, while you're still on the jabs, Health Secretary stated that the NHS must provide injections to a far greater number of people to avoid creating a two-tier service that leaves poorer patients behind. Of course, they could just eat less. I'm throwing that mad idea out here. Someone might think of it. As I want to hear your thoughts on all the big stories. 0344 499 1000. Sacha Lord is going to be joining us just a couple of moments. But first up, former Conservative government advisor Claire Pearsall is still with me in the studio. It is the reality, isn't it, that the speech that Keir Starmer gave yesterday has completely put the cat among the pigeons. People are very, very angry. Nigel Farage made it clear he's very, very angry. He says this has reignited his sort of fire, his passion to basically oust this government. We've got, under 4 years, and we've got to be in full campaign mode in about 3 years' time, but it feels like already. My guess is, as a result of that speech yesterday, I think that Reform will have a 3-point bounce in the polls because I think that would have really, really got up people's noses. Was it good tactically for the Prime Minister, though?
Well, of course it isn't, because all anybody is talking about is Reform and Nigel Farage.
Not him.
And not Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, which, I'm pleased about because I don't really want to talk about the Labour Party.
They weren't talking about your lot. You're still a Tory.
Yes.
You lot didn't even get a mention. Kelly
who? I know, we didn't even get a mention in dispatches. It is appalling. So you've got Ed Miliband having a pop at Elon Musk, David Lammy saying all sorts of outrageous things about Nigel Farage,
and then youth.
I mean, just ridiculous.
Properly mad.
And then Keir Starmer having a pop at Reform, Nigel Farage, people being racist and right-wing and abusing flags. I mean, what is this country coming to? This is where we've got at a major party conference. The Prime Minister of this country cannot tell us how he's going to make our lives better, only that person over there is making them worse.
Yeah, that's the key message, isn't it? Well, look, let's talk about this with my next guest. Sacha Lord is a former Labour Party donor. He was also the nighttime economy advisor to Andy Burnham as Mayor of Greater Manchester, and he joins us to talk about all of this and more. A very good afternoon to you, Sacha.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, we got to know you, and my audience got to know you an awful lot on the show during lockdown when you were one of the chief campaigners for trying to get this country back to normal life, to sanity, getting one of our major employers back up and running in terms of the hospitality industry. But you've always been, a loyal Labour man. You've given some of your own hard-earned money to the Labour Party, supporting Andy Burnham. We'll talk about him a little bit later as well. What did you make of the Keir Starmer keynote speech that's supposed to be about his premiership, his government, his leadership, with 161 majority, just less than 15 months into winning that landslide majority last year, spending half his time basically slagging off the Reform leader Nigel Farage?
Yeah, it was embarrassing, wasn't it? So it's very clear to me that he knows come May the 6th, Labour are going to be completely wiped out in the local elections, completely wiped out in Scotland, completely wiped out in Wales, and that's his moment when he will have to stand down. I wanted him to stand there and say, look, we didn't get everything right in the last 14 months. I wanted him to explain why, since the last budget, in my industry, hospitality, there's been 110,000 job losses. Wow. Why pubs now selling a pint of beer are only making 12p profit after the massive tax that this government's put on them. And he had such a huge moment. I'll be honest, he had a little bit more passion, Julia, than he normally does.
Didn't he?
Perhaps he'd had a couple of coffees before he went on, because he's so cardboard. He's not the type of person you want to sit and have a conversation with, is he? And he was so scripted as well. To me, he's just not a leader. I went to the manifesto launch in Manchester, and the Chancellor stood there and told the room that she was the Chancellor of business, the Chancellor of growth. This is the same Chancellor that increased national insurance on us. And she has done nothing for my sector, the 5th biggest industry in the UK, the 3rd largest employer. And in its current format, and that's important to say that in its current format, I am not supporting this Labour Party.
And is that down to Keir Starmer's leadership, the policies? If it was a different leader, if, for instance, your big mate Andy Burnham, who was very visible at the beginning of the week and indeed at the end of last week as a possible, alternative leader, saying, look, he's backtracked on it a bit, but MPs have been calling him up, people want him to stand, certainly not denying that he was an alternative leader in waiting. He suddenly just sneaked off, disappeared. That leadership challenge seems to have fizzled out. If he was leader, would you go back to the Labour fold?
Well, I've had to have the conversation with Andy to find out what his policies are.
Well, we know a lot of his policies, and they're further left than Keir Starmer's.
What I can say, Julia, is this. Look, I've spent 7 years working very closely with Andy Burnham. And I know you're not a huge fan. I read your article in The Sun this weekend.
No, I like it. I like Andy Burnham as a man. I really do. And I think he's actually done good. I thought he played an absolute blinder for Manchester and indeed, the north of the country and countries that were being hit outside of London on COVID. I really thought he did a great job there. But no, I didn't rate his chances as being a better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer.
I think he would be. And he's a genuine person. And look, you've met far more MPs than I have.
Yeah, lucky me.
You've interviewed far more MPs. They're different people in front of the camera than they are behind the camera.
True. Yeah.
What I'd say about Andy Burnham is he's the same person. He really does care for people. And what he has done for Greater Manchester has transformed our city region. The supports he's given my sector, he's brought buses back under public control. He really cares and he's making a huge difference. And I'm not just saying this is not a north-south divide thing here, Julia, but Greater Manchester is having a real moment. You've only got to look at how many cranes, how many buildings being built at the moment. People are investing in this city region. And I look at other places, dare I say, London, and it's just not happening.
Oh, no, even like nighttime. I've got an 18-year-old daughter. I know about nightlife in London and Manchester and elsewhere, and there's no doubt at all. Manchester is actually thriving on that front. And you just say, people think about, oh, well, who cares about a few nightclubs? No, this is about a whole nighttime economy, a whole daytime, a tourist economy, and he's a third largest employer in this country. Let's come back to what Keir Starmer can do differently, though. What do you make of him? I mean, you say it was an embarrassing speech, and and you think he won't last past the May 6th local and Scottish and Welsh elections next year. But I mean, what do you make of his criticism specifically of Nigel Farage, calling him a snake oil merchant, saying he doesn't like or believe in Britain, saying that reform policies are racist, but then saying, no, but I'm not calling him a racist, and I'm not saying reform voters are racist. But do you think that's what reform voters or wavering Labour voters are likely to hear?
I just think he's played into their hand, to be honest, by saying that yesterday. I just think the anger that's probably created, compared to where we were 18 months versus today, I know so many people who are about to vote reform. So many people. And what's really interesting, actually, is, do you remember that letter, Julia, that 120 business leaders wrote to say, yeah, we support Labour? I know quite a few of those people on that, and they've not come out publicly, but behind the scenes, they've withdrawn their support, and their support is now with reform.
That's
and
interesting.
It's very, very interesting to see what's happening at the moment. And I know you were sat with your colleague a second ago, but the Tories haven't even got a look in on this now. And I think
she's nodding, by the way.
Knows. No, she's good. Keir Starmer knows he's in trouble here.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you about a couple of the specific policies and things? And you mentioned like Rachel Reeves, she's got a budget in November. That's the big set piece that the next to get through. We were told that last year there were some difficult decisions, but now we're on the upswing. Well, we're not seeing growth. Inflation's still going up, unemployment going up. As you say, those 110,000 job losses in your industry, in your sector alone. We've also got the prospect of even more tax rises with that statutory insurance rise for employers and raising of the lowering of the threshold, I mean, that has absolutely killed off an awful lot of jobs in the industry. We're told that one of the issues we've got that we need to tackle is not just that issue of jobs, but also illegal immigration and people undercutting, people working illegally, arriving here illegally, working illegally, able to undercut workers. And we're told that for some reason, still can't work it out, digital ID cards are part of that solution. Would that make a difference to you? You're someone who's been an employer. Would that make a difference if people had a digital ID card?
Do you know, I'll be honest, I think that whole digital ID card was a dead cat thrown in just before conference. I think it was ill thought out. Let's be honest, before they threw that out there, everybody was talking about £740,000 undeclared donations. Everyone was talking about the head of comms for Number 10 resigning just before conference. Everybody was talking about Andy Burnham's leadership there. Then you throw out this brick card and all hell breaks loose. No one's talking about those things anymore. I'm absolutely not convinced. I think it's ill thought out. Why do I need a brick card when I've got a national insurance card, I've got a passport, I've got a driving licence, I've got bank accounts, utility bills? Doesn't make any sense. It will make no difference whatsoever.
And of course, when an employer who wants to employ people legally, it's very, very simple. When they want to find out if someone's legally able to work, they ask for their passport, they ask for their visa, they ask for their national insurance number. And if they're not doing that because they're not bothered, I doubt they're going to worry about a national ID card either.
They're not.
Can I ask you also
even the name's pathetic.
Well, there is that. Just finally, I want to ask you about the breaking news we had in the last hour and a half or so, and this is involving the PPE contract that the Tory peer Michelle Mone was involved in. She said she had nothing to do with it. It was actually a company set up by her husband, and she actually referred them via the VIP lane, which Tory MPs and Tory peers were able to use during COVID. So at a time when you were desperately trying to keep your business afloat, running nightclubs and big festivals, when you and your colleagues in the hospitality industry were desperate, I mean, just desperately reaching into their bank accounts to sort of pay staff who put on furlough as pubs were closed, restaurants were closed, nightclubs were closed for many, many months at a time. A lot of people were making a hell of a lot of money, including this company, PPE MedPro, set up by Lady Mone's husband. They basically had a contract to supply £122 million worth of surgical gowns to the health department. Turns out they weren't actually ready or fit to be surgical gowns. They weren't sterile. They were totally unfit for purpose, had to be basically burnt. They've now been ordered by the High Court to pay back that money. What do you make of that story?
I agree with you. I think we need to be looking at prison term for people that did things like that. It was just... You're right, the industry was shut down. I remember she posted a picture of herself on a multi-million-pound yacht. It was sickening. And why she still has a seat in the Lords, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the fact that there were people who were worried more about making money themselves rather than, making sure their staff got paid and could pay their mortgages, or that people were able, kids are able to go to school, still utterly befuddles me.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, Sacha, fascinating to hear from you. I'm sure fascinating for both Andy Burnham and Keir Starmer to hear from you. Former very crucial Labour Party donor, Andy, and a great, basically nighttime economy advisor to Andy Burnham in Greater Manchester. That's Sacha Lord. Thank you for that. Claire Pearsall, interesting to hear what he had to say about a lot of those business people who did support Keir Starmer and Labour, quietly going, nah, not for me. They're now going to reform. Now, is that because they think their policies are better? Is it that they think that Keir Starmer's not a great leader, or they don't like his policies? Or is it there's that just shift? We know that businesses do this, where they go, right, who's going to be in charge? Where's the money going to be? Right, and over to you. The way they've been shifting between Labour and the Tories often it's got very little to do with the policies. It's just we'd like to give some money to people who may be in charge.
And I think that's what it comes down to. It's not necessarily the politics of the situation or the policies. It's who's going to be in charge, who's going to be writing out those cheques to business. And who can we get in the room with starting now? Because
that's how it works.
It is how it works. And it sounds really awful, but it is how the world works. And we are campaigning
should it?
for the next election now.
I'm of the view, I don't mind someone being open about their support as a business person. I think it's very useful to know if businesses say that, but I don't want any organisation or individual to be able to give large sums of money to any political party or any movement. And although, again, that we absolutely needed, Aaron Banks's money during, Leave.eu campaign on COVID and things like that, but only because there was such a divide on that issue. But as a general rule, I don't want very rich people to be able to influence our politics.
No, but political parties need funding in order to keep going.
Genuinely, I think it'd be cheaper for the taxpayer long term, because I think there's no doubt all these people, they want their peerages. No, let's admit, they give money because they want a peerage, they want a title, or they want to get a good contract. That's why they do it. It's very rarely about them genuinely believing in the cause. There are some, but it's very rare.
No, I don't disagree with that.
Those people get a bigger say in our democracy than ordinary voters like me, and that really, really irks me.
And I don't
one man,
disagree with that.
One vote. One woman, one vote. And you count by 1,000 because you've got £500,000 to give.
But the problem is, if you start looking at taxpayer funding of political parties, which is what it would be, so all parties, I don't want my tax dollar to go towards the Labour Party or indeed the Green Party.
No, but it does. But under the short funds, they do get money.
They do, but I don't want that to be the source of income for political parties.
I think there are ways of doing it which would be acceptable. I really do. We do already spend millions on supporting political parties.
Yeah, I mean, the short money is there so that those smaller parties
I think to
can
take the
work.
corruption out of our politics, we are moving very closely, I think, to American-style corruption. The American political system is utterly corrupt. Complete and utterly, from start to finish, utterly corrupt, bought up and paid for, right?
It is.
Okay, in both parties, no question at all. I don't want that for this country. I really think we can be better than that. And I'm saying 5 or 10 grand or something like that. That's the limit. That's all you can give. Well, you know what? If you want to cozy up with a businessman who's giving you 10 grand as opposed to a few million quid, I think that changes the dynamic between the politician and the business person. I really do.
I'm all for caps on donations, so I think that's the right way to go. But I'm not in favour of public funding.
If you can get a huge number of people to all give, 100 quid, that I think
that's much better.
That's much better than one person. Bankrolling any political party. Again, like Elon Musk saying he bankroll reform. Well, great for reform. Would that be healthy for our country? I think not.
No.
But he'd be totally legally entitled to do it through a British company he owns. But there we are. Anyway, we're getting rather sidetracked, but it's an old issue of mine. We're going to get to your calls up next. Lots more calls coming in. 0344 499 1000, in particular about Keir Starmer and his attacks on Nigel Farage, because that's all we're talking about. Can anyone remember a policy? Anyone remember a policy from party conference other than our policy on immigration and deportations isn't as racist? Well, it's not racist because Nigel Farage's is and ours is a bit different, and the bit different bit is the not racist bit. I mean, it's just not a way to run a country, is it? This is Talk, the home of common sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:25 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's go straight to your phone calls. Lots coming in. 0344 499 1000. I think it's safe to say not very happy about what Keir Starmer had to say about Nigel Farage and reform policies yesterday. We know that Nigel Farage isn't happy about it either. He's called on the Prime Minister to apologise for his comments, stirring up hatred, stirring up, well, inciting violence even. Not directly, not criminally. I mean, not that if they'd written a tweet about it, perhaps the police wouldn't turn up, but basically putting reform campaigners and politicians in even more danger than they already are. At a time, by the way, when Parliament has just cut the security that Nigel Farage is entitled to. God knows why they've done that at this time. Well, let's go to your phone calls, 0344 499 1000, and your texts and your tweets. John is on the line in Bradford. Hello, John. What do you make of that speech and the claims made by the PM?
Well, I wouldn't use the language, it'd be unacceptable. It looked like Starling addressing his troops. And I'll tell you something, these attacks on Nigel Farage weren't accidental, they were deliberate. Yeah. Because what they're trying to do is to frighten people from voting, from standing and from campaigning for reform.
But it won't work.
Oh, no, of course it won't work. I mean, I put my name forward and it makes me even more determined to stand. But I don't know whether when you showed the all waving their flags there yesterday and Labour councils actually tearing them down, the one person that didn't have a flag, do you know who that was?
Who?
Sadiq Khan.
Did he have a Palestinian flag?
No,
I don't know. Supports that cause, doesn't he? I mean, who knows? Yeah. But again, I don't want to live in a country where people are told they're racist for flying their flag or told off for not flying their flag. Fly a flag. Don't fly a flag. I'm good with it. I don't feel the need for people. I actively don't want people to feel forced to do that.
No, but I just hope. I mean, I know it's against his normal thing, but I think that Nigel Farage should sue Lammy and sue Keir Starmer.
I've told him that myself. He says I don't want to spend the rest of my life in court dealing with it, but
I think the barrister's already done it, hasn't he? He's already told the police in Liverpool they've got to go and investigate this. This is an independent person that is a barrister that's told the police they need to go in and investigate it.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, they're not going to send the bother boys round to Downing Street, are they, like they would if it's you or me? John, appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Some of your texts and tweets coming in since this morning. Beth says it looks like Keir is rattled. Nan says he's trying to bully and fuel hatred towards Nigel Farage, Reform and all of their supporters. Look at what happened to Charlie Kirk. There's every possibility that a nutter will try and do the same thanks to Starmer. Especially, I mean, even if it's just abuse, even if it's just like throwing a milkshake, again, like it's just having a milkshake thrown in your face is absolutely terrifying. Yeah. God knows, you don't know what it's going to be. But the lauding of that silly, God, I've got to be saying silly girl. I'm going to go with silly girl. It's not the word I'm thinking of. You know what I'm thinking. Who threw a milkshake and she got prosecuted for it last time round. I mean, she was so pleased with herself. I mean, so stunning and brave, and being lauded by the left. I mean, that's the territory we're in. Neil says the smell of fear permeates like an unflushed toilet at a packed Glastonbury. Beautiful imagery. Thank you, Neil. Douglas says, look back at the speech yesterday. Starmer has good speechwriters, but his policies are rubbish. I don't even think he's got the good speechwriters. Richard says the words pot and kettle spring to mind when it comes to being a snake oil merchant. Brian says Starmer saying anything he can get a response to stinks of desperation. And Nicola says, I'm guessing Farage doesn't like what Britain has become in the hands of Starmer and his globalist cronies, much like most of the country. And Damien says Starmer is a busted flush. Only Burnham will be able to save the Labour Party now. Even with that being said, it's too late. Farage is on course to win by a landslide. And Edmund says Starmer is the one who doesn't like or believe in Britain. I'm fascinated that people think Burnham's the answer. Perfectly nice man, very he was a regular on he stopped being a regular on the show, not sure why, but he certainly used to be during lockdown, and thought he fought a very good fight for people in Manchester. I think he's done a really good job there, but the idea that someone going even further to the left on his policies, borrowing more and taxing the rich, again, the rich don't feel
those people over there.
Yeah, those people over there. The idea that that's the answer to all our woes of our country is laughable. Yeah. Steve is on the line. He's in Scunthorpe. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well. Better for talking to you.
Yeah. Sorry?
I said better for talking to you. What do you want to say, my darling?
Well, I think everything's been covered. I don't know why there's the difference with that lady who was sent to prison for 31 months.
Yeah.
Now, did she actually say, "Oh, you should go out and do it"? She said, I think she said, "You can go do it all for all I
Lucy
care."
Connolly said, "Yeah, burn down the asylum hotels even with the people in them for all I care." Yeah. She
Yeah,
wasn't
so
going,
she's not-
go and burn down that asylum. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say. I thought it was absolutely foul. But she didn't say, this one at, 46, the High Street, go and burn it down.
No, and so what's the difference between her statement and Keir Starmer?
He wasn't actually calling on people to set fire to Nigel Farage's home, but Nigel Farage is saying, you're stirring up feeling. When you make caricatures effectively of politicians you disagree with, you kind of stir up justification for people to use violence against them.
So that these people who have people come round their house and take them away in the middle of the night because they set a hearty tweet or something.
We've seen those cases. Yeah.
He had a bigger audience than that.
Yeah.
So why aren't the police investigating that?
Well, as it sounds like from a previous caller that the police have been asked to investigate. Of course they won't. I largely don't want politicians investigated for things they say. I kind of think that's not where we should be. But I think we get to judge the Prime Minister, don't we, in terms of the words he said. And I think that the judgment of the British people is going to be pretty bloody harsh.
But what is good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say, and that's two-tier again, isn't it?
Yeah, there is two-tier, but do we want to go down to the level? It's the same thing as saying, well, a load of people on the right were cancelled for saying, trans women aren't women, so let's cancel people on the left. Now, again, and I do not include that idiot on American telly who lost his job for a week. So much for cancellation. Yes. Again, I think he was about to breach a contract, telling a lie, blatantly, which he knew was a lie about Charlie Kirk's murderer. But he, I mean, I don't think we want to go down the line of tit for tat and eye for an eye. I'm not sure that's healthy for us.
No, I think he should come out and make a formal apology. And I don't think that any should be broadcast again, that part of the...
Oh, no, it should definitely be broadcast again because we want to remember that he said it, because I think they think that it went down really well in the hall and it would be really clever, and I don't think they have any idea what they've stirred up.
No.
Really interesting. Steve, the interesting points there. Appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. 12:32 is the time. Claire Pearsall listening to that. I can understand a lot of people feeling that way.
Yeah.
Again, on lots of the debates I've been on, I think, let's come back. But we need to be better than that. But we're allowed to judge. The public will judge the Prime Minister on what he said, and it's not going to be kind to him.
No, it isn't, and that's why it shouldn't be removed from broadcast schedule either, because I think that it does need to be out there so everybody can see it. And even if you take it off of broadcast media, it's still going to be on social media.
This is what he said. This is what he thinks. Judge him accordingly.
Judge him accordingly, and also you can hold them to account for it when recollection. They may recollect differently.
Oh yeah, yes, exactly.
What
about your lot? We've got a Tory party conference starting this weekend. Labour conference is over. Everyone gets to come back, nurse their hangovers, do their laundry, and off they go again. You lot didn't get even a mention. I mean, literally, Jenny, if you were an alien come down to Britain from space, you wouldn't know you existed. No.
And I think that's a real difficult position for a Conservative party to be in. It's a very difficult position for the Leader of the Opposition to be in. Let's see what she does with it. Now, this could be some really, really cool move of hers to suddenly come out and have a blinding conference.
Could?
It could.
No one actually expects it. No, indeed.
No, and I think that this is going to be a very flat 3 days for the Tories.
Indeed. Well, again, there's an awful lot. No one thinks they're going to be... No. They're not in power now. No one thinks they're going to be in power in a few years' time. So they kind of become a little bit, with all due respect, Liberal Democrat. Anyway, you never know. Never say never. Stop. Never say never, honestly, because this stuff will come back to haunt you. 12:34 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking about the excitement. I mean, I know we're all of a quiver of the Labour Deputy Leadership contest, and the two women, no, I can't remember who they are either, or frankly, which one is which. There's a haircut they all seem to like in that party. I didn't know that page boy was a thing, but apparently it is. They are going hammer and tongs. But we're going to be talking about a little bit of a row over trans rights versus the rights of, well, women and children up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:38 is the time. Sorry, if I look a little bit shell-shocked, it's because I've just seen a video of Ed Miliband, the man in charge of running our economies and our energy policy. We're going to get a clip of it so we can put it on air in the next 10 minutes. You've got to stay tuned for this because just, oh my God, a video that he himself has chosen to put out. I can't.
Lost for
I am
words.
genuinely, oh my God, we are in so much trouble in this country. Anyway, I wait till we can get it on air so you can see. But dear God, right? Look, let's talk about something else because I'm so shell-shocked. But I'm pretty shell-shocked, frankly, at the deputy leadership contest for the Labour Party, as I'm sure Claire Pearson, who joins me in the studio, also is, and indeed my next guest, Debbie Hayton. He's the author of Transsexual Apostate: My Journey Back to Reality. A very good afternoon to you, Debbie.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you. I just want to clarify for those who don't know, you live as if you were a trans woman, but you also accept that you are a man biologically, and I'm happy to use whichever pronouns I choose, and I choose the biological and grammatically correct ones, and you're happy with that because, frankly, you know, why wouldn't you be? But no, just so people understand the context there. Extraordinary headline: New trans rules go too far, says Labour deputy leadership frontrunner. Now, I think most people with jobs and lives, and frankly, anyone who's even got, you know, a Netflix log on, will not know who is running for the deputy leadership of the Labour Party after Angela Rayner had to step down. But it's Lucy Powell and Bridget Phillipson. Bridget Phillipson is still the Education Secretary. She's the favourite candidate for Keir Starmer's leadership. Lucy Powell got sacked as Commons leader, basically not being very good, but she's being considered the leftist alternative, and she's by far the favourite, it would appear, in that contest. Now, both women, I think, have rather questionable views on the trans issues when it comes to women's rights. But Lucy Powers appeared to criticise the Equality and Human Rights Commission and their guidance on trans issues. And it's advised, in line with the Supreme Court ruling from April, that workplaces must provide single-sex spaces based on biological sex. She says these new trans rules, she says, are, quote, not right. She says, I think we've got some of the language not right on this, and particularly around some of the guidance that's coming forward. She says, I really strongly feel like we need a robust and transparent parliamentary conversation about that, because when we're looking at applying the law as parliamentarians, we should have a say on that, and that's something I'll be pushing for as well. I mean, it's a word salad of nothing nonsense, but what does she think is not right about a woman's toilet being only for women?
Well, when it comes to language, I presume she's not talking about having a Welsh translation for use in Wales. It seems to me that, like too many other politicians, she's caught between conflicting groups and she's trying to please everybody all of the time. She can't do that. As a politician, she needs to show some leadership on this, as others do, and say, quite frankly, we all know the difference between men and women. Let's face it, if 30 years ago somebody had said that Parliament needed to have a vote on who uses the women's toilets and who uses the men's toilets, we would just...
Well, if that was done, in a satirical comedy, show, we'd all go, God, what a mad world that would be. Hello, welcome to 2025.
Yeah.
And the idea that any parliamentarian and Parliament itself should waste any time on that is mind-blowing, when there's quite a lot of stuff that does need doing.
Well, it's just madness that Parliament's getting involved in this. We all know the difference between men and women, and for time immemorial, human beings and human societies have been able to make this distinction. Yeah. We still have that capability, and politicians just need to leave human beings to get on with it, as we've always done in the past.
Well, indeed, but the argument from the trans rights lobby is, well, you should leave trans people to get on with it and let them choose the bathroom or the changing room or the women's refuge or the prison cell that they feel most comfortable with. And again, as campaigners, from famous ones like J.K. Rowling down to other people busy losing their jobs for saying this, saying, well, no, that's not the point of single-sex spaces.
Yeah, and it just elevates the rights of the individual above the rights of the group. There's a wider issue about human rights legislation in any case, where it promotes the rights of the individual and ignores the rights of the wider group. And perhaps that's gone far too... It's been pushed too far in one direction, and this is symptomatic of that wider problem.
Do you mind me asking, I'm sure I've asked you before, Debbie, what you do in your workplace or when you're out and about at the shopping centre, where you're presenting as if you're a woman but you're a man, before the Supreme Court ruling, since the Supreme Court ruling, has that changed anything? What do you choose to do?
Well, the Supreme Court ruling didn't make any difference for me. At work, we've got a mixture of provision. I work in a school and we've got individual staff cubicles dotted around the place, so I use those. And when I'm out in town, I know which coffee shops have which small coffee shops have the individual cubicles for everybody. It doesn't take a lot of research to actually work that out and make things work for me.
And you take that upon yourself as something that you do, so you don't impose how you want to live your life on other people, particularly, say, girls in girls' toilets.
Well, that's right. The argument I make against me using women's spaces, because sometimes women think I'm being ridiculous, but I've often said is that if you let me in there, then it's much harder for you to say no to the next person who says, you let Debbie in, why not me?
Exactly. While people will want to be, respectful and kind and understanding, as you say, and then someone who's blatantly, obviously not someone who is who really believes that they are living in the as the opposite gender will then say, well, I've got a right to come in, and there's a reason why we kept men out of women's spaces. There was a reason why we wanted single-sex toilets, and frankly, most men, 99% of them, don't want to be in the same toilets as women anyway. It is extraordinary, isn't it? But I find it fascinating. You've got two women in this debate in Labour who are this is coming up as an issue, and it's almost like they're competing to give away women's hard-won rights and girls' hard-won safety. Bridget Phillipson's the Education Secretary. I have not heard I simply have not heard her say, since that Supreme Court ruling or before, yeah, every single school, single-sex toilet provision, primary school, secondary school, absolutely nothing to discuss. You've got till, next September, she should have said in April, get it sorted, otherwise you'll be breaching the law. Why has she not done that?
Well, presumably this is a political decision, and it's the worry about upsetting people. And in politics, if you've two groups and you please one and upset the other, the group that you upset is going to cause you more grief than you get thanks from the other group. Yeah. So the result is just kick the can down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you also about J.K. Rowling and her battles with her ungrateful little pipsqueak no-mark, Emma Watson, along with the boys who were big stars of the Harry Potter films? She made these young actors at the age of 14 into multi-millionaires for life, can do whatever they want with their lives. And she made it very clear in a long post she wrote on social media, she doesn't expect them to agree with her views. They're not required, because they made a film that she wrote to agree with any of her political views. But she has been, pretty upset by them, in particular Emma Watson, basically coming in for the attack, believing to refer to J.K. Rowling as a witch, and various other comments about her views. And at a time when J.K. Rowling was facing death threats, rape threats to her family and to herself, massive security needed, over simply stating the most, reasonable, kind views about the need for women's rights to be protected versus trans rights that were trampling on them. She's basically called her out and said, look, some of us understand these needs for women because we weren't all multimillionaires at 14. What did you make of that debate and that battle of war of words?
Well, I feel for J.K. Rowling. She's put so much into this, and she's defended the rights of other women. And she just sounds totally exasperated with people who really are now old enough to know better, and who have given her so much grief, attacked her in so many unpleasant ways. And in her position, I can totally understand how exasperated she is with the situation. She's done nothing wrong in this position, but taken so much flack from other people.
Yeah, indeed. Debbie Hayden, I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much. Author of Transsexual Apostate: My Journey Back to Reality. Claire Pistol, your reaction to that?
I think that in this argument, Debbie's absolutely spot on. Just let's be sensible. Let's have a proper conversation about just take responsibility for yourself. Yeah. Which is what Debbie does.
I'd love to wait till after a break, but I just can't wait to show you this. I mentioned you a few moments ago because someone just came in and showed me a video that Ed Miliband has posted online, put it on Instagram. I've just retweeted it on X. Genuinely, I'm going to play it. If you're listening, you are missing out, and I'll tell you what it says. But basically, it's written on this posting. Point of view. You go to check whether Reform are still talking the country down and they're just being more divisive. And it's him wandering up and down the road. Just have a watch and a listen.
Well, honestly, I was speechless when I woke up to your voice. Now you tell me how you've been feeling. Let's look at.
So, and basically, for those of you who are lucky enough not to have seen that because you're listening on the radio, it's Ed Miliband doing like a catwalk, sort of, the pose with the elbow out. And, Claire, I'm really sorry you had to watch it on the big screen in here. This man is in charge of energy policy in this country, but also saying you go to check whether Reform are still talking the country down. Again, this is the claim from. That's really not what most people are hearing. They say our country is great and it could be back to where it's great. And they're just being more divisive. The language used by Starmer, by Wes Streeting, by David Lammy, by others yesterday and earlier this week, absolutely the most divisive, toxic language, and they're accusing Reform of it.
Yeah, they need to look at the blame that they're putting onto other people and check their own behaviour at the same time. But I'm sorry, I'm still sort of slightly sidetracked.
I hate to tell you, for those, you're so lucky if you're listening on the radio because
you can't
they're now playing it on loop next to us.
I know, I can't
unsee it.
Drag my eyes
away from this. You can't unsee it. Ed Miliband is not a serious human being.
Do you know what? Politicians should steer away from doing these kind of social media kid hits, videos that you can produce when you're 14 years old and it'll look fine.
I don't even want
a man that's in his, probably in his 50s.
We're going to go to a break so I can just quickly throw up in a bin. I mean, what? 12:49 is the time. Up next, we are going to talk about Wes Streeting saying something about, not about Nigel Farage, but basically saying that we need to have this war on obesity and we need to make sure that there isn't a poor-rich divide in terms of who can get hold of these fat jabs. But I thought poor people were too poor to buy a load of food. So why are they fat anyway, eh? This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I absolutely promise we will not have Ed Miliband mincing around on your screen just for the next few minutes. But oh my God. Anyway, Wes Streeting has been in the news. Of course, as a health secretary. One of the things he's been saying is that giving weight loss jabs to millions of patients, he says, will help to finally defeat obesity. And he says the NHS must give injections to far more people to avoid creating a two-tier system and a two-tier service that leaves poorer patients behind, because the vast majority of those various different weight loss jabs that are on the market now are currently being bought privately by patients rather than being handed over on the NHS. Well, let's talk about this with Thorin Govind, who's a pharmacist and healthcare expert. Good afternoon to you, Thorin.
Good afternoon.
Thanks.
Well, all we seem to talk about when we speak is these weight loss jabs,
well,
isn't it?
From what I could gather, this is all pharmacists do now, is it just handing out weight loss jabs to everyone? I know a lot of people who've done very well on them. I know some people who don't appear. I mean, someone, a friend of me said, oh, my husband's on these weight loss jabs. And I said, what, did he get a faulty batch? I mean, come on. Everyone we know, whether it's the celebrities, the politicians, they're all on them. Everyone's losing weight. But most of these people are paying for them themselves. We're seeing price hikes with some disputes with different companies in terms of the price here in the UK. But should the NHS be handing these out to anyone who wants them, who's overweight on the NHS?
Well, I mean, obesity is a public health issue. If you are obese, that means that you're probably potentially going to be ending up taking cardiovascular medication, diabetes medication, which is also a huge cost as well. So we need to think about prevention, and we need to be stopping people getting to the stage where they are obese. But if they are at that stage, then obviously I don't think it should be based on how much you earn or how much you can afford. The whole premise of the NHS is free at that point of need. But
do they need it? Here's the thing: do you need that medication? I mean, there is. If we're going to talk about the cost issue, and this is the thing, people say, well, overweight people are costing the NHS a lot of money. But as a general package, this is things like smokers. Smokers get more diseases, but you know what they do? They die early. They don't claim their pension for as long, and so they actually don't cost more money than they contribute to the exchequer with those extra taxes. And I'm afraid to say, the evidence seems pretty clear. The same for people who are very obese. They die sooner. They don't claim their pension for as long. They're not an extra cost on society. And that's what people get angry, but them's the stats.
I like to keep people alive, Julia.
So do I.
And I think
you can give people advice.
A weight loss jab.
But you can give people advice, but we also know that weight loss jabs don't work for everybody, and they only work while you're taking them, and the vast majority of people who take them, when they stop taking them, put the weight back on.
Well, it's also about the holistic wraparound care. It's not just about having that weight loss jab. So that is my concern as well. It's all very well saying we're going to provide these to more people, but you actually need the care, the holistic support, the check-ins, the making sure that you actually changing your lifestyle as well. So I do agree. It's not simply a case for everyone, and they're not monitored. We don't like this premise that they are a magic injection. They're not suitable for everyone. We have to make sure that they're right on an individual basis.
And there is an awful lot of side effects.
Is these people buying?
I'm so sorry. There's a bit of a delay.
Like all medications, but sorry.
Sorry, I think so. We've got about we've got about a 30-second delay. So we're just constantly. I'm just going to say there are an awful lot of side effects as well, and we don't know the long-term implications, because when anything is hailed as a super drug, and it's going to nearly always we find out years later there's actually a lot of long-term health implications.
We need to make sure we're monitoring the side effects constantly, and I agree they are not for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I will have to leave it there. Sorry, Govin. Apologies for the quality of that line. Pharmacist and healthcare expert there. Where are you on this, Pearsall?
The people don't need to have skinny jabs. They just need to take responsibility for what they're putting in.
But it is hard for a lot of people. I think you've probably always been slim. Some of us, have gone up and down, in our weight, before or after babies and things like that. A lot of people struggle.
I've been
that way. But
I have been that way. But also, if you find yourself sort of, your arm deep inside a bucket of Pringles when you could actually just be eating an apple and some grapes, then you've got the issue there, and you need to sort that out.
And you shouldn't expect other people to pay for it.
Precisely.
I'm just convinced that these jabs are going to turn out to be a health disaster. Yeah. I really, really am. Someone who I'm sure has never had to worry on this count. The fine, the dapper, the silver fox that is Mr. Ian Collins.
Not when you look like this, sweetheart.
Yeah,
you don't have to worry.
Blimey.
You've got no worries. I know so many people on it.
I mean, genuinely, half the people I know.
Correct. It's just like
mostly the overweight
half an hour ago, nobody had heard of these things.
I know.
Suddenly,
but they're all saying it's great. I'm just like, yeah, but are you learning to? I had to learn. My default is always, I'd like a chocolate brownie, not a bit of broccoli. So I've had to learn. Have you ever had a chocolate broccoli? I would happily eat broccoli with chocolate on. Like I say, can I just ask you? I've got to ask you about Keir Starmer and his attack on Nigel Farage and the policies. What